get my birthday dinner paid for by my grandparents. My brother threw Sprite at me because I picked a restaurant. He hated my parents, defended him, and said, "Don't overreact." I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I looked down at the puddle spreading across the tablecloth and slowly smiled. Because deep down, I knew this wasn't about dinner. This was about something bigger, something that had been building for years. And now, finally, it was out in the open for everyone to see. My name is Noah Bennett. I'm 17. I live in Plano, Texas with my parents and my younger brother, Jackson. We're what you'd call a picture-perfect suburban family on paper. My dad, Greg, works in corporate finance. My mom, Melissa, runs a successful real estate agency. Jackson's 15 and plays varsity football, even though he barely trains. And me, I'm the quiet one, the mature one, the one they count on to understand, to compromise, to be the bigger person. At school, I get decent grades, help run the yearbook club, and tutor underclassmen. I'm the kid who doesn't make a fuss. I used to think that made me the favorite. It didn't. It made me invisible. Jackson doesn't even have to try. If he wants something, he gets it. Always. We eat where he wants, watch what he wants, go on vacations that fit his schedule. For birthdays, achievements, even casual Friday night dinners he picks. Me, I learned not to bother. I learned to accept we'll go somewhere everyone likes, which somehow never included my favorite spots. Especially not the little Thai fusion place downtown that I loved, the one with the yellow curry that tasted like warmth and comfort. Too spicy, Jackson always whined. Weird textures. Smells like grass. So naturally, we never went. And for years, I swallowed it. I convinced myself it was just a phase, that eventually someone would notice I was always the one compromising, that being considerate would pay off. But it didn't. Until one summer day, out of nowhere, my grandparents showed up. They live up in Portland, my dad's parents. Old school, but the good kind. Ruth and Marvin. The kind of people who bring homemade jam when they visit, who remember your favorite comic book artist, and who somehow always know when something's off. They came down to stay with us for a couple weeks in June, and it just so happened to be the week of my 17th birthday. I wasn't expecting anything major. Probably pizza again, probably Jackson picking the place, probably me smiling politely and pretending it was fine. But 2 days before my birthday, Grandma Ruth pulled me aside while we were cleaning up after dinner. "Noah," she said softly, "if you could go anywhere for your birthday dinner, where would you pick? Don't worry about anyone else. Just you." I hesitated. I'd been trained not to answer questions like that honestly. But something about her voice, the way she looked at me, gentle, direct, I just said it. "Lotus and lime," I whispered. "The Thai fusion place." She nodded once, like it confirmed something she already knew. "We'll take care of it," she said, squeezing my hand. "Your parents don't get to dictate everything." And they didn't. On my birthday, we all piled into the car. Jackson was already complaining about being dressed up. I knew something was up, but I didn't know exactly how far my grandparents would go until we pulled into the restaurant lot and Marvin announced with a grin, "Surprise. We've been wanting to try this place for years. Our treat." My mom blinked, obviously caught off guard. My dad looked annoyed. Jackson groaned so loud I swear people in the next building heard it. But I kept my mouth shut and slid out of the car. Inside, the staff greeted us warmly. The place smelled amazing lemongrass, basil, garlic. For once, I didn't have to fake excitement. The dinner was beautiful. Until Jackson started, complaining about the menu, making faces at the food, whispering snide comments. My parents scolded him half-heartedly, but no one really stopped him. Then the Sprite. And that silence. I looked up, met each of their eyes, and smiled. Not because I was happy, but because I was finally done pretending. That moment, the sticky shirt, the soaked table, the tight knot in my chest, it became the moment I realized I wasn't the one causing drama. I'd been surviving it. And what happened after that? You won't believe it. Because they thought I was just going to sit there and take it again. But I didn't. Before we go on, if you've ever been the one who always had to understand the one who got the short end just to keep the peace, hit that like button. And subscribe if you're tired of being told to be mature while others act like children. This is the story of how I took back my voice, my birthday, and maybe a little bit of justice too. Ready, let's go. Growing up in the Bennett household wasn't exactly painful, it was more like slowly fading into the wallpaper. I wasn't neglected. I had food on the table, clothes on my back, a roof over my head. But what I didn't have was presence. I wasn't seen, not really. And I learned early on that speaking up usually led to nothing changing unless it made things worse. So I stopped trying. I adapted. Jackson didn't have to adapt. He thrived. Loud, impulsive, messy. He was everything I wasn't, and my parents couldn't get enough of him. They called it charisma, said he had spirit. I called it getting away with everything. If he didn't like something, it was immediately off the table. If I didn't like something, I was told to be flexible. I was the easy one, the low-maintenance child. And somehow that meant my needs came last every single time. It started with little things. Choosing movies, picking board games, deciding where we sat at restaurants. But the moment it truly sank in was my 13th birthday. I'd wanted to try this local Korean BBQ place downtown. I'd heard about it from a friend and was genuinely excited. But Jackson refused, said he didn't like weird food, even though he'd never tried it, even though it wasn't his birthday. My mom sighed and said, "Let's just go to Tony's Pizza, everyone likes Tony's." I didn't say anything, just nodded and went along. That night, I picked at greasy garlic knots and soggy crust while everyone else laughed like nothing was off. That was the first time I remember feeling invisible. It became a pattern. Birthdays, report cards, even awards nights, every celebration somehow turned into something that catered to Jackson. He got to choose the restaurant, the dessert, sometimes even the guest list. My preferences were just optional. My dad used to say, "You're older. You understand more." As if understanding meant I didn't get to feel hurt. As if being older meant forfeiting basic consideration. By the time I turned 16, I stopped trying to make suggestions. I knew the drill. Jackson would whine, my parents would bend, and I'd end up sitting at some noisy pizza joint while pretending the cheese didn't taste like plastic. Once I tried ordering a salad just to be different, and Jackson made gagging sounds the whole time I chewed. My dad laughed. I didn't. Afterward, I got in trouble for creating tension. At school, I wasn't exactly popular, but I had my people. Friends who saw me, who let me choose the playlist sometimes or asked what movie I wanted to watch. I clung to those friendships like they were oxygen. I even started working part-time at a bookstore downtown, mostly just weekends and holidays. It was quiet there, peaceful. No one interrupted me. No one compared me to someone louder. For the first time, I felt like I had a space that belonged to me. And then came senior year, college applications, letters of recommendation, and with it, the pressure from my parents to start acting like a role model. That was code for don't make waves. It always was. Even when Jackson punched a hole in the wall after being told he couldn't borrow the car, he was given a pass. Teenage hormones, my mom said. He'll grow out of it. Meanwhile, if I so much as sighed too loudly during dinner, I got a 30-minute lecture about tone. So when my grandparents showed up in June, it felt like oxygen flooding a room that had gone stale. They weren't perfect, but they listened, asked questions, looked me in the eye. And for the first time in years, someone in my family cared what I wanted without me having to beg for it. I don't think they planned to intervene, not at first. But I think they noticed the imbalance right away. The way Jackson dominated the room. The way my parents shrugged off everything I said. The way I stayed quiet, not out of peace, but habit. And maybe, just maybe, they decided it was time someone else had a say. That's how the birthday plan came together. Quietly, strategically. 2 days before Grandma pulled me aside. I remember her words exactly. You've spent years being told to be the bigger person. When's the last time someone was big enough to choose you? I didn't have an answer. But she did. And what came next? That was the beginning of the shift. The beginning of something small but powerful. For the first time in years, I didn't just feel seen. I felt backed. And that made all the difference. By the time my birthday rolled around, the tension in the house had already started to bubble beneath the surface. Jackson was growing suspicious. He hated surprises unless they were for him, and he definitely didn't like being left out of the loop. He kept hovering around conversations between me and Grandma Ruth, asking weirdly specific questions like, "You're not making me eat tofu or something, right?" I shrugged him off. I didn't owe him anything. Not this time. My parents, of course, were blissfully unaware or pretended to be. My mom was busy trying to get Marvin to download some real estate app she'd been promoting. My dad spent most of his time in the garage fiddling with tools he never actually used. They were too distracted to notice that something was shifting, that I was no longer playing by the same rules. On the day of the dinner, everything looked normal on the surface. We all got dressed. Jackson wore his usual half-ironed button-up with sleeves rolled too high like he was about to DJ someone's Sweet 16. My mom complimented him twice before even looking at me. I'd put actual effort into my outfit, a navy collared shirt, black jeans, even a hint of cologne I knew Grandma liked. No one noticed. It wasn't new. I didn't expect them to. But the silence stung anyway. We piled into the SUV, Jackson already half asleep in the back seat with his earbuds in. I sat next to the window, gripping my phone like it could anchor me. I wasn't scared, not really, just waiting. Waiting for the moment anything might finally go right. The car turned toward downtown. Jackson noticed first. "Wait, we're not going to Big Red's?" he asked, half sitting up. My dad paused. Marvin said he wanted to try something new. Jackson narrowed his eyes. "You're joking, right? Thai food. Are you trying to ruin my life?" I almost laughed. The drama was so predictable, it felt rehearsed. Grandma leaned forward from the passenger seat, completely calm. "We've been reading great reviews about this place. Very popular with the locals. It's called Lotus and Lime." My mom's eyes flicked to the rearview mirror toward me. I looked straight ahead. The restaurant was beautiful. Warm lights, soft music, the air rich with spice and citrus. A server led us to a corner table, private, but still in view of the main dining area. I felt my heart beat slow, like maybe I could breathe here. The menus arrived. Jackson flipped his open like it was a personal attack. "What even is half this stuff?" he muttered. "None of this is normal food." My mom gave him a warning glance, but it didn't land. He pushed his chair back, crossed his arms. "I'm not eating mushrooms. If someone tries to feed me mushrooms, I'll puke." No one had even ordered yet. I tried to stay present. I asked questions about the specials. I thanked the waiter. I was polite. I was everything I'd always been raised to be. And Jackson. He turned every minute into a performance. He complained about the music being creepy. He said the utensils smelled like soap. At one point, he poked a spring roll and said loud enough for the next table to hear, "This looks like something that came out of a turtle's butt." My grandparents were mortified. I could see the way Marvin's jaw tightened. My dad tried to laugh it off, but the humor didn't reach his eyes. When the food arrived, it was perfect. Sweet and savory fresh herbs blending with heat perfectly balanced. I took a bite of yellow curry, the same dish I'd been craving for over a year, and I almost teared up. It tasted like care. Like someone had thought of me, just me, and made something beautiful. But the moment didn't last. Jackson started mock vomiting. "Oh my God, it's spicy. You're trying to kill me." He grabbed his glass of Sprite and chugged half of it dramatically. I looked down at my plate, cheeks hot, heart sinking. And then came the moment that changed everything. Jackson slammed the rest of his Sprite onto the table, leaned toward me, and said under his breath, "This is why nobody likes you." "Noah, you're selfish and boring and weird." And then, without warning, he tossed what was left of his drink straight at me. Ice soda lime, all of it soaking through my shirt, splashing across the table, dripping onto the floor. For a second, no one moved. I heard the server gasp. I saw my mom's mouth open. My dad muttered Jackson like the word itself might do something. And me, I sat still, blinked once, then smiled. Because that was it. The mask was off. The golden boy, the center of attention, the one they'd all protected and defended, he'd just humiliated me in front of everyone. And there was no excuse. No, he's just young. No, he didn't mean it. It was raw, unfiltered spite. And for the first time in years, everyone saw it. I excused myself from the table quietly. Walked to the bathroom, dried off the best I could with paper towels, stared at my reflection for a minute. And I felt something crack open, not pain, not shame. Power. The kind that comes when you finally stop pretending the people around you are better than they are. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to cry. But I was done. And from that moment on, things were going to change. Whether they liked it or not. I stayed in that bathroom longer than I needed to. Not because I was upset, I wasn't. I was calm. Focused. Everything was clearer now, like someone had finally wiped the fog off a mirror I'd been staring into my whole life. My shirt was still damp, and the sticky sweetness of the soda clung to my skin, but all I could think about was how freeing it felt to not care anymore. Jackson had thrown the first stone, and this time I wasn't going to pretend it didn't hurt. I wasn't going to keep the peace. Not for him, not for my parents. Not even for show. When I walked back to the table, they all looked up. My mom opened her mouth to say something, but I beat her to it. "It's fine," I said, simply sliding back into my seat like nothing had happened. My dad cleared his throat. My grandma gave me a long, searching look. She didn't say a word, but I could feel her approval like a warm current beneath the awkward silence. Jackson didn't apologize. Of course he didn't. He just leaned back, crossed his arms, and stared at his untouched plate like he was the one who'd been wronged. The rest of dinner went by in clipped conversation and barely concealed tension. I didn't care. I finished my curry, thanked the staff, and kept my tone pleasant. Calm. That's the thing about being quiet for so long. People forget that silence doesn't mean weakness. Sometimes it's just strategy. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling fan spinning above me. Each rotation was like a countdown. I wasn't angry, not in the yelling, door-slamming way my family was used to. I was done giving them reactions they could label dramatic. Instead, I was going to let the truth speak for itself. I didn't need to scream to be heard. I just needed to stop playing along. And I knew exactly where to start. The first move was small. I stopped engaging. No more forced conversations over dinner. No more pretending to laugh at Jackson's terrible jokes. I answered questions with short, direct responses. I kept my tone polite but distant, detached. My parents noticed, of course. My mom asked if I was still mad about dinner, and I shrugged. No, I'm just tired. My dad told me to let it go already. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. They were uncomfortable, and for once, it wasn't my job to fix that. But it wasn't enough. I wanted them to see what they'd created. I wanted them to understand that the quiet, obedient version of me they'd grown so comfortable with was gone. So I started documenting. Notes, screenshots, voice memos. Every time Jackson did something cruel or manipulative. Every time my parents ignored it or made excuses. I didn't plan to use it at first. But it felt good to have proof. To know that if things ever went too far, I wouldn't just be another teenager acting out. I'd have receipts. Then, almost as if on cue, Jackson escalated. He always had a flair for dramatics, but now he was being spiteful on purpose. One morning, I found my notebook, my personal one, where I wrote short stories and journal entries with pages torn out and crumpled in the trash. Another day, he unplugged my phone while it was charging just to use the outlet for his Xbox. When I said something, he smirked and said, "What, gonna cry again like at the restaurant?" My parents brushed it off. "He's just teasing," my dad said. "You're too sensitive," my mom added. But I wasn't sensitive. I was watching, calculating. I knew revenge wasn't supposed to feel like strategy. But this wasn't about getting even. This was about reclaiming space. And timing mattered. So when my grandparents asked if I wanted to spend the weekend at their Airbnb to get some air, I said yes. And once I got there, I told them everything. Not in a dramatic rant. Not even with much emotion. I just laid it out. What had happened. What had been happening for years. How I'd spent birthdays pretending to enjoy myself. How every small request I'd ever made was treated like a burden. How being the older brother meant being overlooked, not respected. And when I finished, my grandma didn't rush to hug me. She didn't start crying or whisper that everything would be okay. She just nodded and said, "Then let's make sure this birthday ends differently." And that was the moment I realized I wasn't alone. That for once, I had backup. People who didn't just see me, but believed me. So we sat down together, the three of us, and started making a plan. I wasn't going to confront anyone. I wasn't going to demand apologies or force conversations that always ended the same way. I was just going to live visibly, eat what I liked, speak when I wanted, take up space in rooms where I'd been taught to shrink. And as simple as it sounded, I knew it would rattle them more than any tantrum ever could. Because when someone builds a version of you that's easy to ignore, the scariest thing you can do is exist fully, loudly, proudly, without shame. And I was finally ready to do just that. The next Monday, I walked into the kitchen while my mom was making coffee and said, "I'm staying with Grandma and Grandpa this week, just until the weekend." She turned from the counter, eyebrows raised like she hadn't expected me to speak. "Is something wrong?" she asked too casually. I shook my head. "Nope, just need some quiet." I could see the flicker of confusion in her eyes, maybe even guilt, but she didn't say anything else. She didn't stop me. And that was all I needed. At the Airbnb, things were calm. My grandparents gave me space without tiptoeing around me. In the evenings, we made simple dinners and watched movies I actually liked. No mockery, no forced compromises, just ease. I helped Marvin with the garden in the mornings. Ruth asked about my writing and actually listened to the answers. For the first time in years, I felt like a person again, not a prop in Jackson's endless drama. Meanwhile, back at home, Jackson was unraveling. I didn't have to be there to know it. My absence left a void he couldn't fill, and that terrified him. No one to mock, no easy target. When you're used to everything orbiting around you, even silence can feel like rejection. He texted me once, a dry, "So are you like mad or something?" I didn't respond. My mom called later that night and left a voicemail saying they hoped I'd be home by Friday because we're having family dinner. Again, I said nothing. That Friday, I came back on my terms. I arrived an hour before dinner and walked in like I didn't owe anyone anything. Jackson was on the couch playing some first-person shooter volume cranked so loud the walls vibrated. He glanced at me, then did a double take. "You're back," he said. No apology, no greeting. Just that, as if I were the one who'd been gone too long. I ignored him and went upstairs. Dinner was awkward. My parents acted like nothing had happened, asking about school and whether I'd started any new writing projects. I kept my answers short. My silence made them squirm. It was subtle, but effective. I wasn't arguing. I wasn't sulking. I just wasn't performing anymore. I could feel them trying to figure out where the shift had come from, but they couldn't say anything without admitting the truth they'd spent years ignoring. That night, I posted a photo of my birthday dinner at Lotus and Lime on Instagram. Nothing dramatic. Just a plate of curry, a short caption. "Best birthday meal I've ever had." Within an hour, friends commented things like, "Finally, and you deserved this," and even one from a classmate, "I barely knew your brother's such a little tyrant." Glad someone did something. That last one made me pause. I hadn't said anything directly about Jackson, but people noticed. They always had. They just didn't speak up until I did. 2 days later, Jackson retaliated the only way he knew how, publicly and immaturely. He posted a TikTok with a duet-style video pretending to gag while a clip of Thai food played beside him. The caption, "When your brother forces the whole family to eat grass for his birthday." It was pathetic, but it gained traction. Kids from school shared it. Some laughed. Others DM'd me saying he was out of line. I didn't comment. I didn't repost. I screenshotted everything and saved it in a folder labeled Jackson's Greatest Hits. Then came the kicker. At lunch the next day, he tried to prank me in the cafeteria. A couple of his friends dared him to dump a tray of sautéed mushrooms onto my lunch. I saw it coming. I saw the smirk, the shift in his posture, the way he tried to be sneaky but still wanted everyone watching. But I didn't stop him. I let him do it. And when the mushrooms hit my tray, I looked him dead in the eye and said, calm as ever, "That's assault, Jackson. Maybe not the legal kind. But you just humiliated your own brother in front of a room full of witnesses. Hope it was worth it." He didn't laugh. His friends didn't either. I stood up, dumped my ruined tray, and walked straight to the principal's office. No yelling, no whining, just facts. I explained what happened, pulled out the screenshots, described the ongoing pattern of behavior. It wasn't dramatic, it was clinical. And it was enough. The school called my parents. My mom showed up later that day looking exhausted and embarrassed. She asked why I didn't tell her sooner. I told her I had just not in ways she ever cared to hear. And I left it at that. Jackson got a 2-day suspension and mandatory sessions with the school counselor. My parents didn't defend him this time. They couldn't. The evidence was too clear. The silence around the dinner table that night was suffocating, but this time it wasn't on me. I wasn't the one carrying the weight anymore. They were, and I was just getting started. After Jackson's suspension, everything in our house got quieter, but not in a peaceful way. It was the kind of silence that felt heavy, thick, like the air before a storm. No one said much at dinner anymore. My mom stopped trying to force conversation. My dad retreated even deeper into his garage projects. Jackson barely came out of his room unless he had to, and when he did, he looked at me differently. Not with guilt, not with anger, but with fear. He wasn't used to consequences. He was used to being untouchable, and now that illusion was gone. The fallout wasn't explosive. There were no screaming matches or door slamming. Just a slow unraveling of the system that had always put him first. For once, the spotlight wasn't on me to keep things smooth. I let the awkwardness sit, let the discomfort stretch. I wasn't going to fix it for them. I wasn't going to shrink myself so they could feel better. I'd done that for too long. Now I was just existing. And that was enough to shake the ground beneath their feet. My grandparents, of course, knew everything. They didn't say I told you so, but I could see the pride in their eyes when I showed them the screenshots, when I told them how I calmly handled everything without stooping to Jackson's level. Marvin clapped me on the back. Ruth gave me a look I hadn't seen before, not pity, not worry, just respect. Like I'd finally stepped into the version of myself they always knew I had in me. And honestly, I felt it too. At school, things shifted. People who'd always stayed neutral before started nodding at me in the halls. I wasn't suddenly popular, but I wasn't invisible anymore either. A few classmates even thanked me, said they had siblings like Jackson, and wished they'd stood up for themselves sooner. That part surprised me the most. I hadn't done any of this for attention. I just wanted space to breathe. But the fact that it resonated with others, that made it feel even more worth it. Jackson, on the other hand, spiraled. He tried to act like he didn't care, but it was obvious. He became short-tempered, snappier than usual. He fought more with our parents. He got benched during a football game after mouthing off at a coach. I wasn't happy about it, not really. Watching him crash wasn't satisfying, it was just sad. But I didn't step in. I didn't offer to smooth it over. Because this was the road he'd paved for himself. And it was about time he walked it. My parents eventually sat me down a week after everything blew up. We were in the living room. No TV, no distractions, just the three of us. My mom looked tired. My dad looked uncomfortable. We didn't realize how bad it had gotten my mom started. We should have listened more, paid closer attention. I stayed quiet, waiting to see if it was real or just another performance. "You've always been so mature," my dad added, and I think we leaned on that too much. "Expected you to carry more than your share." I nodded, but I didn't offer them comfort. I wasn't angry, not in that moment, but I wasn't going to make it easier for them either. They needed to sit in that discomfort, to really feel it. Because maybe then they'd remember it next time they were tempted to excuse cruelty as just teasing or dismiss hurt as oversensitivity. After that, things didn't magically become perfect. We didn't suddenly transform into some warm and fuzzy sitcom family. But they tried. My mom started asking me what I wanted more often, not just assuming. My dad made an effort to show up to the yearbook showcase even if he left early. And to Jackson, he kept his distance, which was honestly all I needed from him. What mattered most wasn't their change. It was mine. I'd spent so long bending myself into shapes that made other people comfortable. So long being quiet so others could be loud. Being kind so others could be cruel. But now I knew better. I knew what I was worth. And I wasn't going to let anyone, family, or not convince me otherwise again. For the first time in a long time, I felt at peace. Not because everything was fixed, but because I had finally stopped asking for permission to exist. Looking back, it's strange how something as simple as a birthday dinner became the turning point in my life. Not because of the food or the restaurant or even the mess Jackson made with that glass of Sprite. It was about the principle. The years of being sidelined, of being told to compromise while others never had to. The moment I finally stood my ground wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic. It was quiet still and unshakably clear. And it changed everything. What happened wasn't about revenge in the traditional sense. I didn't lash out. I didn't humiliate him back. I didn't become a version of myself I wouldn't respect. What I did was something harder. I drew a boundary, and I held it. I made it clear that I was done shrinking. I stopped pretending things were okay just to avoid making others uncomfortable. That, I think, is the part that shook them the most. I didn't scream, I didn't beg. I just stopped playing my role. People always talk about family like it's supposed to be sacred, untouchable. But the truth is, family doesn't give you a free pass to treat someone like they don't matter. If anything, it should mean treating them with more care, more respect. For years, I thought love meant tolerating everything. But now I understand that real love has limits. Real love doesn't ask you to disappear. I'm not going to lie, there's still tension sometimes. Jackson is who he is. He hasn't had a total transformation, and maybe he never will. But I've changed. And because of that, our dynamic is different. He can't get the same rise out of me. He can't push the same buttons. And slowly, he's realizing that. Whether or not he chooses to grow from it is up to him. That part's no longer my responsibility. As for my parents, they're still learning. Some days they get it right. Some days they slip back into old patterns. But now I call it out. I don't let things slide because it's easier. I speak up. And slowly, I think they're beginning to understand that being the easy child doesn't mean being the invisible one. That just because I didn't make noise didn't mean I wasn't hurting. And if you're someone who relates to any of this, if you've ever felt like your role in the family was to make peace, to shrink, to let others shine while you sat in the shadows, I want you to hear this. You don't owe anyone your silence. Not even the people who raised you. You have the right to take up space, to have preferences, to say no. And yes, it might rattle people at first, especially the ones who benefited from your silence. But trust me, it's worth it. I didn't get the perfect apology. I didn't get a big emotional reconciliation, but I got something better. I got clarity, I got distance, and most importantly, I got myself back. So, if you're sitting there right now thinking about all the times you stayed quiet to keep the peace, maybe this is your sign, your moment, your birthday dinner. Because sometimes all it takes is one night, one meal, one small act of defiance to remind the world and yourself that you matter too. Thanks for listening to my story. If it resonated with you, leave a comment below. Share your own experience. You're not alone. And if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe. Because here we speak the truth even when it's uncomfortable, especially when it's uncomfortable. Until next time, take care of yourself. And don't ever apologize for existing fully. You deserve to be seen. You always have. Story 2. I've always known where I stand in the family hierarchy, in between the houseplants and my mother's collection of decorative dishes. My sister Daphne was firmly in the race for the Golden Child Award, and she was now in charge of our monthly family breakfast. To capture her absurdly large diamond in the early light, she waved her left palm. I'm Summer, the sister who wasn't meant to be there that morning, but Daphne insisted, and my mother called me 6 times before I agreed to go. It's perfect. My mother cooed as she held Daphne's hand across the table. Tyson has excellent taste. I prodded at my Benedict eggs, wondering if anybody would notice if I slipped away. The restaurant's terrace was crowded with Sunday brunches, but Daphne stole the show at our table, which might have easily been its own stage. Summer, you're being so quiet. That's what Daphne said, turning her dazzling grin towards me. Would you not like to join me on this important day? I managed to be excited and feigned a smile. Again, congrats. Indeed, Daphne's eyes bore an all too familiar look. The one where she pretended to be assisting me and hinted that she was going to ask for anything? I've been thinking about the wedding stationery. Do you continue to pursue your little design passion? I noticed my jaw tightening. They still saw my career as a little hobby even after I had completed 3 years of my own freelance company and 6 years of art school. I run a graphic design firm. I corrected it without saying anything. I do create wedding candies, yes. Fantastic. Daphne clapped her hand. You may complete all of my stationery. They maintain a record of everything, including dates, invites, and programs. We will give it to you as a wedding gift. My father looked up from his coffee cup. That takes a lot of work, Daphne. Oh, please. With a gesture, my mother waved him away. Summer has time. She doesn't appear to care about a committed relationship or a respectable job. The words were like little darts, stinging and sharp. I set my fork down. The hunger has vanished. Rates are the starting point for my pricing. Daphne laughed. It had the sound of breaking glass. Don't be ridiculous. I'm your sister. In any case, it's the least you could do. Being single and everything. Feel free to vicariously experience my dream wedding. I looked around the table where my father sat. The now attractive coffee cup, my mother's eager eyes, and Daphne's triumphant smile. I remembered years of these incidents. My art school acceptance letter was overshadowed by Daphne's ascent. My very first important client. Overlooked because to Daphne's recent romantic partner. Every achievement is minimized. Every accomplishment is ignored. I heard myself say that in a forceful voice, of course. I would be overjoyed to see. Mum grinned. Summer is an expert assistance network. Daphne began her letterpress company by using gold foil to create personalized monograms. I nodded when I should have, and something black and determined unfurled in my chest. The save the dates have to be distributed next month. Daphne said, I'll send you an email with my Pinterest board. Everything needs to be perfect. The Olivers are almost aristocracy in this city. I promise not to let you down. I promise to. For once, I meant every word. The rest of brunch was a blur of wedding gossip and mimosas. We stood up to go. Daphne pulled me into a scent hug. Thank you, little sister. I had no doubt that you would complete this one duty accurately. My parents were standing proudly on either side of Daphne as they departed her expensive shoes clicking on the pavement and her ring shining in the sunlight. For the last time. My drafting table was waiting by the window of my little light-filled studio apartment, so I drove back there after that. I pulled out my sketch pad and opened my laptop. There was a notification with a message from my closest friend, Colin. How went the family's torturing session? As usual. I gave the type back. It's Daphne who got engaged. Who is making her wedding dress? Do you know, describe your triple charge to me? Better? I replied, grinning as I opened a blank document. My efforts are in vain. Are you working for no pay? Who are you, and what have you done with Summer? I took a while to respond. Instead, I started to accurately and purposefully draw each stroke. If they wanted publicity, they would get it. If they wanted ideal, I would provide it to them. And if they expected me to put my all into this endeavor, they had no idea how I really felt. Trust me. I finally sent Colin a written response. The investment will be well worth it for this one. I'm not charging you anything. My phone buzzed for the 20th time that morning. The texts from Daphne arrived rapidly. The scroll work has to be more delicate. Can more gold be added to more gold? It seems like a low-quality typeface. Have you listened to me at all? I set down my coffee, went back to typing, and worked on the revisions. Now. Actually, I'd previously finished 3 perfect versions of the Save the Dates, but Daphne wanted to feel in control, so I kept handing her intentionally flawed drawings and letting her fix them until we got to the exact one I'd always wanted. My phone rang. Colin let me know you don't actually work on Sundays, he remarked when I took up, merely making my sister feel important. I turned on the speaker and continued sketching. What is the setup of the gallery I'm actually calling for that reason? I need you to come to the place. The lighting is odd, and you've got a better eye for a loud voice coming from the hallway. Cut off our conversation. I knew immediately. Tyson, the fiancé of Daphne. He must have been at the architecture firm next door. Yes, I do know. He was speaking, his voice growing clearer as he walked by my studio door. When it comes to the wedding, Daphne is getting pretty theatrical. No, dear. Don't worry, I'll look after her. I became icy. Without Daphne, he was by alone. She had a yoga class going on, to let me know she sent me a selfie an hour ago. Colin, I will return your call. I whispered to stop the conversation and walked away silently. I listened to the door. Last night, V. Tyson continued, his voice falling. Miss you, too. Indeed, we'll do it again soon. Daphne has a wedding planning gathering on Thursday. Come on over. I touched my lips with my hand. V is for Valerie, Daphne's closest friend and maid of honor. I waited for his footsteps to cease and then took up my laptop. As my fingers scanned the keyboard, I browsed Instagram. It was present. Even after Valerie's profile was just made private, her most recent public post was still accessible. A sunset photo with the text, Summer Nights and Secret Delights. The timestamp indicated a night. Daphne called me in tears because Tyson was working late. As I sat at my workplace in the growing darkness, I forgot about my design job. I knew exactly how it would end, but I knew that telling Daphne would be the right thing to do. She had accused me of being jealous and trying to ruin her happiness. My mother said I was making things up to garner attention. My phone buzzed again. Daphne, you have to send out the save the dates the next week. The date of the engagement celebration that the Olivers are throwing for us must be known in advance by everyone. Avoid making an error. I read her message and looked at my doodling. The elegant borders I made could easily hide a QR code that is both small enough to look nice and clear enough to scan. In addition to after scanning. Summer Colin was at my door. Are you okay? You didn't pick up when I called. For him, I opened the door, showing him Tyson's call, Valerie's post, everything. After looking through my phone, he said, "Holy shit. Will you inform her?" No. I started my design course. I'll show everyone this summer. His words had a note of caution. Think about what you're doing. I've been thinking about it for 29 years. I've thought about it. about her being a disappointment to the family and her silly little hobby. I turned my screen to face him. Would you want to help me make a private photo album? This is crazy, he said, but he had already picked up a chair. There's no going back once you do this, you know. I started working on the QR code to make it blend in with the design, going back to what being everyone's doormat. You're correct. Maybe we should leave it behind us, although he did see me at work for a little while. No. I kept working on making my hand design more stable. The save the dates will be distributed the following week. Keep in mind that everything needs to be perfect. Colin stayed up late to help me test the QR code and put up the private album. When he finally left, the studio was black but for the light from my screens. On my phone, I noticed Daphne's last message. Your most current design was just shown to me. Much better. Check out what happens when you listen to me. Maybe there is yet hope for you. The intricate pattern on my screen, which would ultimately expose all of the falsehoods, made me smile. Regards, Sis. I gave the type back. I'm putting all I've got into this one. Furthermore, I just wasn't who she thought I was. I saved the completed design and forwarded it to my printer within 7 days. 300 save the dates would be sent to Minneapolis, his finest. The truth has 300 chances to come to light. Let's begin the countdown now. The print shop smelled of new ink and expensive paper. Every single detail, even the nearly invisible QR code woven into the border flourishes, was flawlessly mirrored by the gold foil as I saw the first save the date emerge off the press. These are stunning, the printer said, holding one up. During the wedding season, we are very busy. Its design is distinct, nevertheless. Distinct. Would that he knew? My phone was buzzing. Again, Daphne. Please let me know when they're ready. The engagement celebration is tonight. Just taking them up now, I said. They satisfy every urge you have. I carefully packed the boxes, every save the date, nestled in ivory-colored envelopes. 300 little bombs are poised to detonate. Back at my studio, Colin helped me sort them by zip code. This is your last chance to back out. Look at this, he said, sealing another packet. I showed him my phone. Just now, Daphne posted something to her Instagram. The fact that my talented younger sister is in charge of our wedding stationery makes me very happy. Sometimes the most rewarding chores are the easiest. Planning a wedding. The whole family first. Colin winced. Okay, she deserves this. My phone rang. Valerie. I ignored the voicemail. She has been calling more lately. I was probably asking myself why I had agreed to do all of this work for free. She would soon find out. The post office will close in an hour. Colin reminded me of it. We loaded the boxes into my car at the post office. The clerk promptly began processing them, but she raised an eyebrow at the amount. Every time she stamped, it sounded like a heartbeat. It's all done, she said. They will go early tomorrow morning. I drove Colin home and then returned to my studio. She was coming over to fetch some for tonight's party, Daphne had texted again. Deliveries to the Olivers had to be made by hand. She burst with a sense of entitlement and expensive perfume 20 minutes later. Where are they? I'll need at least 30. I handed her a bundle of envelopes. She immediately started studying them after holding them up to the light. The foil work was excellent, she said. Even if the typography was more exquisite, it still seemed as though she was evaluating a child's artwork. Tyson's mother has very refined taste. She most definitely does. I thought of the pictures of Tyson and Valerie in various dangerous positions in the covert album. Hotel receipts are sent back and forth by SMS. Oh. Daphne's face lit up as she noticed her phone. Valerie just arrived at the party site. All of this preparation has been made possible by her tremendous support. She looked at me. That's what genuine friendship is all about. It's summer. Maybe you should try it sometime. I smiled. I've been studying friendship a lot lately. My tone was completely unheard by her. Therefore, try not to be such a loner. It's disheartening to see you alone yourself all the time. She headed for the door. She cradled priceless packages on her chest. Thank you for this. Try to make it to the celebration, if you can. Make a good impression. After she left, I opened my laptop and gave the album one last glance. All of this was ready in less than 24 hours. When Colin texted me, it would ruin all those well-planned lives. Are you okay? My response was never better. I worked late into the night to complete client chores that I had ignored, and I finished Daphne's Save the Dates after midnight. My social media accounts started to overflow with photos from the engagement celebration. Daphne and Tyson. Stunning. Valerie was standing nearby wearing a dress that cost more than my monthly rent and sipping champagne. One image drew my attention. Tyson's mother shows the save the date, emphasizing its exquisite features in front of a group of society women. If she looked closely enough tonight, she may even be able to see the QR code. But she didn't. They wouldn't. Not until a few bored visitors decided to take a closer look at the intricate design tomorrow. I got one last buzz from my phone. Daphne, they were beloved by everybody. Look at what happens when you work for it. Maybe this will lead to you landing a real job. I started to reply, but then I stopped. Instead, I opened my calendar and created an event for tomorrow. Outside my window, the city lights shone as though they were aware of the secret. Somewhere out there. Mailboxes held 300 envelopes waiting until daybreak and 300 ticking clocks set to go off simultaneously. I shut down my computer and got ready for bed. Since tomorrow would be a big day, I wanted to make sure I slept well enough for the performance. After all, as Daphne used to say, appearance is everything. The initial call was made at 2:17 p.m. I continued creating a logo for a client, ignoring Daphne's name flashing on my phone screen. Then more calls came in. My phone buzzed and Colin texted me. It's only the beginning. Just as I was finishing my response, my studio door suddenly flew open. Daphne did not move. She had mascara streaming down her cheeks and was wielding her phone like a weapon. "What did you do?" she screamed out loud. What did you do? I was calm when I talked. You need to be more specific. She shoved her phone in my face. The QR code. All of them are calling me, texting me. There are pictures. It's summer. Oh. I turned back to my computer. That's fascinating. Do not act as though you are innocent. She slammed my laptop shut, nearly catching my fingertips. Pictures of Tyson. Private letters. How did you get these? I'm good at what I do, I said quietly. Do you recall my silly little hobby? Instead of turning scarlet, her cheeks became white. Have you planned this like you said? I only needed to make the effort. The sudden hit wounded my face. I didn't flinch. You're lying, she hissed. Your actions changed those photos. You're trying to ruin my life because you're jealous. I could not get my phone to stop buzzing. Mum and Dad. Unidentified numbers. Speak with Valerie, I suggested. She appears in the majority of the photos. Daphne's hand started to shake. Valerie would never monitor your communications. She must be trying to contact you by now because, I said. As if on cue, Daphne's phone lit up when Valerie phoned. She glanced at it, then at me, then back at her phone when she responded. Her voice was small as she said, Val. Valerie's voice came to me via the speaker, afraid. Daphne, I can explain. It was meaningless. I said Tyson, you were constantly too busy. Daphne ended the call. Her perfect posture gave way as she sagged into my client chair. 300, don't forget the dates. I stood up and stated that. 300 QR codes. How many have been scanned thus far? Why she looked up, tears ripping through her makeup. Why would you do this to me? To you, I laughed. This has nothing to do with you. Here, the truth is in question. About the consequences. For years, I've been treated like nothing while you, Valerie, and Tyson play their little games. My phone buzzed again. Colin sent an SMS. A local gossip website recently took up the story. Take a look at Twitter. Daphne's phone was inundated with notifications. She examined them. Her hands began to shake more. Mom is on the phone. The Olivers are there. Please, God. It's well liked. You wanted others to notice what I was doing, I reminded her. You appear to possess it. Abruptly, she leapt to her feet and grabbed her bags. I'll deny everything. I'll say you're crazy for making it all up because you're a lonely, bitter loser. Go ahead. I opened my laptop again. It includes all of the metadata, timestamps, locations, hotel receipts. I pay close attention to every little aspect in my work. When I really put myself through it, I hear a new voice coming from the doorway. What the devil is going on? Tyson did not move. His immaculate hair was disheveled. He became red. He looked at me, then at Daphne, then at his phone. The pictures. Valerie, how did you ask her, Daphne? I spoke everything at once. Having already contacted my father's lawyers, he withdrew. Will, what I interrupted you? Because I said the truth, I'm being sued. Go ahead. I retained everything. He turned and fled as Daphne reached out to him. We could hear his expensive sneakers banging down the hallway. As my sister stood in the middle of my studio, her world was collapsing in real time. I saw a fleeting glimpse of the little girl who used to share her ice cream with me and held my hand on the first day of school. Then she straightened her back, brushed away her tears, and pointed at me. According to this family, you are deceased, dead. I've been dead for years to this family, I replied. The only difference is that everyone knows why today. She bounded out with such vigor that my design awards clattered on their shelf. I went back to my computer, launched Twitter, and watched live as my sister's perfect life collapsed. Wedding scandals were common in the area. A meme has already been created from the save the date design. My phone displayed a text message from an unknown number. Ainsley is your cousin. I am supposed to be the wedding photographer. I just wanted to express myself. Girl, oh no. Be respectful. I had her number on hand. After that, I checked my email. 3 fresh client inquiries were received, and each one brought up the imaginative QR code design work they had come across online. Sometimes exposure is essential. The largest wedding dispute of the year. The designer's sister exposes the husband's adultery with a QR code. The headline screamed from the screen of my laptop. The local gossip blog had made it their top story, along with a high-resolution photo of my save-the-date design and grainy reproductions of the pilfered photos. In my studio, the doorbell rang. Colin rushed in and brandished his phone. Have you noticed this? You became viral. I have seen. I gestured towards my inbox, which was flooded with emails. The wedding planning community is particularly interesting. Is it summer? A quiet voice emerged from the door. My father stood there looking older than I had ever seen him. We have to talk. Colin squeezed my shoulder. He slipped out and said, I'll get us some coffee. My father sat thoughtfully in the client chair. It's your mother. Is she managing this well? In your opinion? He rubbed his face. Don't you think you could have handled it more tactfully? Talk to your sister in private as if anybody would have believed me. I turned my screen to face him. Look at the comments, Dad. All of his friends were famous. Daphne's social group. They all knew. They chose to keep quiet since it was more comfortable, but this reveals it. He gestured helplessly. The dishonor. The truth. I fixed it. I designed the messenger myself. My phone rang and Valerie texted me. I've lost everything because of you. I hope everything is okay on your end. I showed it to my father. The people who are acting betrayed are the ones who really did something wrong, which is amusing. He stood up and adjusted his jacket. Your mother wants you to know that you are no longer welcome at Sunday brunch. No, I wasn't. He left and Colin returned with coffee and a paper bag. Brought food. You could need it. A reporter from the city magazine is downstairs. What? The topic of their writing is creative design in the digital age. They most likely simply want the details of the problem, but whatever publicity is publicity. My phone rang again. This time, the photographer was my cousin Ainsley. Hey, I know this is an odd occasion, but my customer believes you did a great job with the QR code. Would you want to collaborate with me? So working with the family is fine with you. Pariah? She laughed. Please. The family has been waiting for someone to take advantage of Daphne. We just didn't think it would be so inventive. After we hung up, I visited Instagram. Daphne had issued a lengthy statement in light of the current events, which were obviously orchestrated by those with a history of mental illness and deep-seated jealousy. The comments were scathing. Go take the L Team designer sister. Is there anyone who has the QR code asking for a friend? My mother sent me a new email. I hope you understand how much you have hurt this family. Your sister is distraught. Tyson's mother had to leave their country club early yesterday. Did you hope this would happen? To destroy everyone's life with your narrow-minded revenge? I deleted the paper after beginning to reply. I opened my design software and got to work on a new project. The dispute led to my first commission. Colin glanced through my shoulder. Are you okay, superior to average? I explained the details of the commission to him. They want a campaign that reveals hidden facts through design. The perfect irony. Let's discuss perfection. He nodded towards my window. Tyson's Tesla was coming up outside. He left, straightening his tie as though he were off to a business meeting. Are you okay with my staying? Colin asked. No, I've got this. Tyson entered without knocking. We need to discuss terminology. Actually, we don't. My father is prepared to make a proposal. No amount of money will make those photos disappear. I interrupted, and now they are visible. As if you and Valerie were out there. All those evenings were devoted to planning your wedding by Daphne. He struck my desk with his hand. You've ruined everything. No, you did just that. All I did was make things seem pretty. He moved as quickly as he had arrived, nearly colliding with a delivery man carrying a large bouquet. The card was read from truth teller to truth teller. Let's talk about the editor of Feature Articles Design Weekly. My phone displayed another text message from Ainsley. Hi there. A random question. Is there any way you could make the invitations for my brother's wedding? His fiancée's favorite thing is scandal. Furthermore, it appears that you are the popular choice for social weddings right now. I laughed honestly. For the first time in days, my PC beeped with another email notification. This time from a big design studio. Maybe Daphne was right. Sometimes when done effectively, the easiest jobs may be the most rewarding. The official cancellation was revealed on Daphne's Instagram exactly 1 week after the QR code issue, citing personal reasons. We've decided to postpone our wedding for as long as possible, Tyson and I. Please respect our privacy at this difficult time. The comment area exploded in a matter of minutes. Private circumstances. LOL. Your sister came to your aid. Team Summer Forever. I closed the program and turned to face Colin, who was helping me load the studio. Are you sure of this change in the downtown design hub? I received twice as much room for the same price, I remarked, gently wrapping my medals. They also want me to teach a course on digitally integrated creative print design. To put it another way, how can wedding invites hide controversial QR codes? That's the unofficial title. My phone rang. Mom. When I put it on voicemail, she called me back right away. What I answered, I'm going to take you away. She made her news without any prelude. And selling the childhood art supplies you utilized? Anyway, I never really got interested, I replied. And I'd gotten those goods from Daphne. You've got a point, Summer. This is the end of your retaliation. Are you happy now? Your sister seldom leaves the house? I taped a second box over. Maybe she should have thought about the consequences sooner. Which comes first, before she trusted her sister? Before giving you the chance to participate in something special? Before you treated me like garbage for 29 years? She hung up. A few seconds later, there came a text. You will regret this when you are as alone as you have made your sister. Colin read that over my shoulder. There are others around you. You know, I know. I provided my email address to him. I had 3 new clients this week. I have 2 magazine interviews tomorrow. I appear to be well liked in the design community as well. Twitter. The studio's entrance opens. Ainsley came in with coffee and a magazine. You're going to want to see this. She placed the magazine on my desk. The latest issue of Modern Design Monthly featured a full-page analysis of my Save the Date article. Art of Exposure. How One Designer Transformed Wedding Stationery into Social Commentary was the title of the article. Ainsley grinned and said, "They're calling you a visual revolutionary. The perfect combination of creative expression and activity." Ainsley claims that Daphne is moving to Chicago, and Colin stated, "Daphne is going to hate that." After they pulled some strings, she supposedly got a job at the Oliver's satellite office. She wrote about new beginnings this morning. My phone buzzed with another email. I was asked by the Design Hub to consider setting up a gallery display that isn't immediately noticeable. The power of visual truth. "Yes," said Colin. "The rest of your work could be displayed alongside the wedding suite. Go beyond a straightforward dispute." I was about to reply when Daphne texted me one final time. "You've made your point. Right now, I hope you're happy. I hope your great career made hurting your family worthwhile." I looked at the message for a long moment, then typed it back. My career had nothing to do with it. It was the truth. Something you never understood. She read it immediately without responding. "Please help me carry these crates." I asked Colin and Ainsley. The new studio has better lighting. As my car was being loaded, I saw that the glass mirrored myself. I looked different somehow. Maybe more powerful. Or just more of me. Ainsley nearly dropped a parcel. I almost forgot. Remember that cooperation we spoke about. The client wants to schedule a meeting for tomorrow. They want the big social wedding they are planning to be authentic and creative. Interpretation. They don't have to give them the drama they want. Colin laughed. "Maybe. But at least they're honest about it," I said. We finished packing the car as the sun started to set, casting long shadows across the parking lot. Suddenly, my old studio seemed small and claustrophobic. Tomorrow, I would start anew in a room 3 times this big with windows overlooking the city and my name on the door. My phone had never turned on before. The communication from my father. "I noticed the news in the magazine, but your mother is upset. The artwork is amazing, Summer, even though it wasn't timely." I showed Colin and Ainsley. Progress. Little actions. said Colin. "Finally, at least one family member has acknowledged the caliber of your work." "Art," said Ainsley. "Art that works really well." We locked up the old studio and went out. The empty room where I had painstakingly and creatively planned my sister's death was lighted by the building's security lights. In the future, there will be new projects, challenges, and opportunities to utilize design to tell the truth. However, when I saw my old life disappear in the rearview mirror today, I felt nothing but light. Today would have been Daphne's wedding day, instead of going to my sister's wedding. I was sitting at my new drafting table working on rebranding ideas for IT companies. The irony was not lost on me. They wanted something real, something open. On my phone, Instagram buzzed a notification. Daphne had not written a blog post since moving to Chicago. Sometimes the universe thinks differently. Today, I'm throwing a celebration for new beginnings. The image had her surrounded by champagne bottles and new pals all dressed in white as if it were a distorted parody of a wedding ceremony. She indicated that it was a posh rooftop bar in the center of the city. "You truly have no plans to go, do you?" Colin asked, reading over my shoulder. "No," I said, getting back to work. "Yes, I grabbed my keys. In the summer, maybe. I only need to return one thing from my apartment." I dug through my jewelry box and discovered it. Daphne gave me a beautiful silver bracelet on my 16th birthday while we were still sisters, not just made-up characters in each other's stories. The rooftop bar's pretentiousness was just what I expected. I heard Daphne laugh before I saw her that sociable trill she had developed over the years. Oh, God. I heard a whisper as I approached. Is that correct? Daphne turned around. Her champagne glass froze halfway to her lips. You're here, but why delivery? I held out the bracelet. I discovered this as I was packing up my studio. She stared at it, her face flashing with recognition. You kept that old thing up till now. Her new friends watched us talk like we were playing tennis. Probably to capture a dramatic moment for social media, one pulled out her phone. Daphne said, You know, her voice resonating through the rafters. I've been thinking a lot about family and forgiveness while I've been in Chicago. I set the jewelry on her table. Or have you just been working on how to incorporate this into your comeback? You're a talented storyteller. She reached for the jewelry. You turned my life into a small masterpiece. No, I only made the frame. You and Tyson painted the artwork. Her pals whispered to one another. Surely someone started recording on video. Are you curious about what's funny? Daphne's voice became quieter throughout the years. Actually, I was sad for you. Poor Summer. So talented, but so inconspicuous. I gave you the best opportunity of your career and you ruined me. The opportunity. I laughed. Are you referring to free labor now is your chance to explain to everyone that your younger sister was only a hobbyist artist. At least I did include you. How lately have you done anything with me yesterday? I said in silence. My gallery show opened, Mum and Dad showed up, and that stopped her. What? They looked at my work. Did you see it really, maybe? For the first time? Dad began to cry when he realized how long I had been silently shouting through my works. Mum wanted me to demonstrate technology integration for her. Daphne's perfect disguise faltered somewhat. I never knew. Why would they? You blocked every one of our numbers. She twisted the bracelet between her fingers. It was time for me to start over. In one day, you brought my whole life to an end. No, I corrected her. Your fake life fell apart. The real one. I have yet to receive a response. Whenever you're ready to live it. I turned to go, but her words stopped me. Did any of it take place? The bracelet dates back to our early years. I looked back in her direction. That's why I kept it so long. I'm returning it immediately, for that reason. You broke long before I ever picked up the pieces. Her friends had become silent. Phones are still recording. Probably a lot of people will post this on social media tomorrow. The designer sister interrupts the rebirth celebration. For once, though, I didn't care about the exposure. It's summer, Daphne called as I reached the exit. The design. It was simply beautiful, even the QR code. I know, I said, and turned to go. I felt like I was enveloped in a warm blanket on this June evening. My phone was buzzing. Ainsley had sent a link to an article. The wedding design scandal has caused a revolution in the industry which illustrates how concealed codes are changing. Modern stationery. Below there was a message. You changed the entire game in addition to your own life. I walked back to my car, leaving behind the sound of Daphne's celebration resuming without me. The bracelet that had been dragging down my jewelry box for years now lay on her table, a remembrance of a relationship that ended long before any QR code could tell the truth. My phone buzzed again. A new client's question. Looking for something new. Something that tells the whole story, not just the salient points. I smiled and set about crafting an answer that I could at least write. The gallery was alive with the excitement of the opening night. The fact that my presentation, hidden in plain sight, had drawn such a large audience astonished me, my parents both. They stood before the main attraction, a massive print of Daphne's wedding invitation that included a QR code and was illuminated by the gallery's lights. The details matter. My father said quietly, It's different seeing it like this. It was the first time I had looked closely. My mother touched the frame just a little. For all those years, you told us stories using your craft. In other words, we couldn't read them. Before I could respond, Colin ran over. Summer, you have to see this. He handed me his phone. She had just received an email from Valerie. Dear Summer, I'm getting married. Before you ask, please don't tell Tyson. I found someone who actually values honesty. I know this seems strange, but will you make our invitations? No hidden codes are needed this time. Everything is already out there. Valerie. Colin said, That's surprising. I gave him back his phone. Is the whole evening the same? Look about you. The museum was packed with design students sketching in notebooks, photographers studying my techniques, and society spouses whispering behind their hands. For my new studio, there was a 6-month waiting list. The controversy had changed completely. A conversation on truth in art and how to speak when words fail. It was a voice Summer recognized. I turned to see Ainsley clutching her camera. If I made any additions to the display, would it be acceptable? She saw an image on her screen. Daphne clutched the silver bracelet mask which finally shattered during her celebration of rebirth. As stated in the caption, the moment truth catches up, it's perfect. Print it, I replied. My phone was buzzing. Daphne texted the national design bloggers after viewing your display. You were never just a hobby artist, I guess. I showed Colin that I had improved. Little actions. He agreed. The gallery's director approached with a champagne flute. So far, 4 pieces have been sold, and there's someone here. You should talk to a publisher who would want to turn your story into a coffee table book on innovative design techniques. My mom overheard a book about my daughter's work. There was a new pride in her voice. Delicate. Real. I excused myself and stepped outside onto the gallery's balcony. The city below shimmered full of stories to tell. My phone buzzed again. I got another text from Daphne. I'm not ready to forgive you just yet, but I'm starting to see why you did it. I keep the bracelets on my desk at work as a reminder of who we were and who we may become. I typed back a number of designs. Invest time in improving your abilities. The audience had gathered inside around my latest creation, a series of interwoven frames that tracked the evolution of my art from the bridal suite that exposed everything to my most recent endeavors to early works in which I concealed my misery with beautiful flourishes. Bold, sincere, not afraid. It is like watching someone find their voice. I was informed by someone that Colin joined me on the balcony. Valerie's email. Are you going to do it? Maybe. I smiled. But first, I have another assignment. I showed him the drawings of my latest design series. Sister Tales explore the breakdown and reconstruction of families through visual narrative. The first element is the picture of Daphne wearing the jewelry I mentioned. Sometimes the most powerful truth is the most basic. And what is that? Because every one of us is just an individual trying to get attention. My father called from inside Summer. The publisher wants to talk about figures. I took one final look at the city lights. My phone was filled with Valerie's email, Daphne's text, and several more messages from people who recognized themselves in my artwork. What started out as revenge has developed into something much more. A conversation on being real in a world full with well-planned lies. Are you prepared? Colin almost inquired. I sent Daphne a final SMS. The gallery will open late tomorrow. Come see who we really are. There was a lot of activity in the show. My mother was spreading the word about my techniques. My father smiled at everybody who would listen. The QR code that wrecked one life somehow built another where the truth was respected and not simply accepted. I stepped back through the exhibition doors into the light of my own work. What came next? Valerie's wedding? Daphne's possible reconciliation? The foundation of my developing career would be complete honesty. After all, that's what great design is all about. Proving to people what they need to see, irrespective of their level of preparation. The rest is just details. Story 3. My children were banned from my mom's 60th birthday because the party was adults only. But then I saw everyone else bringing their kids. Your children wouldn't fit in, my mom said. So I left early. The next day I did this. and everyone went crazy. Hi, my name is Rachel Whitlow. I'm 29, married, have 2 sons, and a master's degree in special education. I work full-time at a public elementary school and somehow still find the time to remember everyone's birthdays and my extended family usually before they do. And yet, despite all that, I've spent most of my life being told I'm too sensitive, too intense, or my personal favorite, just looking for attention. Middle child syndrome. I used to think that was it. I have an older brother named Chris, who's a dentist, and a younger sister named Chelsea, who still refers to herself as the baby, even though she's 26 and owns a photography business. Me, I'm the one who always volunteered to host, always made sure everyone's kids had a place to snooze, and always took up the slack when someone failed to bring a dish to family occasions. But none of that stopped me from being treated like the family afterthought. So when I got the invitation to my mom's 60th birthday celebration, I'll confess I was caught off guard. First of all, it was formal, like printed in the mail. Formal. My mom is an event coordinator, so that aspect wasn't shocking. What was surprising was the short, italicized note at the bottom. Adults only. Please, let's keep it nice. I read it 3 times, then again, then passed it to my husband David and said, "Is it just me, or does it seem pointed?" He squinted. "You mean like directed at us, or at Liam's? My oldest? He's 7. Brilliant. Humorous. His fascination with dragon training has made him a walking encyclopedia of dragon knowledge. In our family, he is essentially a unicorn that everyone pretends not to see since he has autism. My younger child, Max, is 5 years old and has the natural ability to win over cashiers. However, both of my children have attended every uncomfortable Thanksgiving, every reunion, and every birthday celebration. Furthermore, we have never been instructed not to bring them. It seemed targeted, to be sure, but I didn't want to cause a scene. That's the problem with being referred to as theatrical throughout your life. To show that you're not you, eventually begin to tread carefully. So I RSVP'd, grabbed a dress, and made a sitter reservation. Indeed, this fancy winery just outside of town was the venue for the celebration. It's Instagram's birthday. String lights and valley parking. A cake that was so large it most likely had its own zip code. Already a bit tense from the entire exclusion incident I entered by myself. Then I noticed it. Balloons, little plates, folded name cards with sparkling marker lettering, and the children's table. And chuckling while seated. Consuming cake. My nieces, nephews, and half a dozen cousins' children were having a great time. I felt as though I had been smacked as I stood still in the doorway. Smacked me because I didn't misunderstand, not in a figurative sense. I wasn't going overboard. I was left out. My children were left out. I made an effort to assume the best of her. Perhaps there was a last-minute alteration. Perhaps she neglected to inform everyone else when she informed me it was exclusively for adults. That would be detrimental. Yes, but perhaps not malevolently. Then I noticed the magician, the balloon artist, and the ridiculous puppet stage. I discovered my mother laughing with Chris and Chelsea outside the terrace, sipping a drink. She seems taken aback by my presence. Rachel. As if I were the one who had unexpectedly arrived, she said, "Isn't this lovely? I wasted no time. I assumed this was a gathering for adults only." She cocked her head and blinked at me as if I were the issue. "Well, it was simply more convenient to suggest that you are aware of Liam's personality." I simply gazed at her. He gave a stiff, courteous grin. "Your kids wouldn't be accepted." There was no miscommunication, error, or choice made. My children were purposefully excluded because they didn't fit in, even though I had to explain the party to them and then make up an excuse for their inability to go. Only my children, not all of them. From behind her wine glass, Chelsea added her voice. "You understand, I'm sure." And I did, at that very moment. Oh, I got it exactly. I said nothing at all. I didn't cause any trouble. I simply walked past the bubble machine, past the glittery name cards, past the magician who was taking scarves out of his sleeve, and out to my car. As I sat in the driver's seat with my hands shaking and my dress tucked under me, I came to a realization that I should have had years earlier. They never wanted me to fit in, so they never wanted my kids to either. That night, I didn't get any sleep. While David slept next to me like a man unconcerned by generational trauma, I lay there staring at the ceiling with one arm draped across my forehead like I was in some sort of Victorian melodrama. I kept mentally reliving it. My mother's voice, that smug, condescending grin, and those four unexpectedly powerful words. Your kids wouldn't be accepted. No. Couldn't come. No. It was a mistake. They'd be out of place. Similar to mismatched puzzle pieces, as if we were out of place. I saw Liam sitting cross-legged on the rug in the living room, wearing his handcrafted dragon wings and describing the toothless tail fin for the 20th time. Just to feel included, I considered having Max provide totally irrelevant dinosaur information. I also believed that this was nothing new. This wasn't even unexpected. For the first time, they had been so open about it. Let's go back. I was the sensitive one growing up, the melancholy one, and the attention seeker, of course. This incidentally is funny. In a household like mine, you know what gets you less attention: having opinions and prying, being unique. At a Marsh family dinner, would you choose to be invisible? Simply put, let your feelings be known. I composed a poem on loneliness for a school assignment when I was 9 years old. I read it to my mother in the hopes that she would say something encouraging. "Oh, darling, you don't have to make everything about you," she murmured, looking up from her magazine. I experienced a panic attack once again while on a family trip. At 15, I was having trouble breathing. Tunnel vision, tight chest, everything. My father questioned whether I was lying. My mother advised me to lie down till I was able to act properly once more. At the same time, Chris stubbed his toe once, which prompted 3 people to hurry over with ice and a cushion to elevate it. I immediately discovered that neutral cheerfulness was the only feeling that was permitted in our home. Be amiable. Keep silent. Take it easy. None of those things applied to me. Liam now. He's not, in fact. It's not that he doesn't try. Though he was born into a world that doesn't always make sense to him. God, he tries. He is making every effort to decipher it. Actually, one medicine at a time. After a protracted draining procedure that entailed more paperwork than purchasing our home, he received his diagnosis last year. My mom blinked, as if I had just told her that he had 3 heads when I told my parents. She stirred her tea and muttered, "Oh well, you were always dramatic." Okay. Since autism is only a new manifestation of attention-seeking, it seems that we both contracted it from the same hypothetical virus. David was prepared to leave. I wasn't in contact at the time. I still harbored a little betraying hope that they might change their minds, that they would understand if I gave them enough explanations and demonstrated Liam's intelligence, kindness, and deservingness. They didn't. "He's so intense," they would say. Perhaps if he interacted with others. Do you believe he makes excuses for it? Max received nothing but praise despite being noisy, wiggly, and forgetting to flush the toilet 40% of the time. What a decent young child. Observe those etiquette. He's simply very laid back. I became aware of the trend. Simple, adorable, challenging. Equals are accepted. People with autism are excluded, not by chance either, intentionally. Similar to the birthday celebration. At first I didn't understand, but now I do. The purpose of that invitation was everything but elegant. It was about making sure they were comfortable. Since Liam, God forbid, may play abnormally talk excessively about dragons, become overstimulated by the commotion, or just act in a way that makes people uncomfortable since it's not how they're used to living. What else, though, makes people wriggle? The truth. In all honesty, my family has also never understood how to handle me. When I received a college scholarship. Whoa, I didn't anticipate that when I purchased our first home. Having a spouse who manages finances must be pleasant. When I first began teaching, that is. Oh, so you spend your days playing with children. Every success I've achieved has been attributed to either David or my additional effort or to serendipity. Every unpleasant situation I've encountered has been reframed as my own fault for being challenging. My mother advised me to try smiling more while I was experiencing postpartum depression. My dad stated after Liam was diagnosed. Like you, I'm confident he'll get over it. I never outgrew anything. I overcame it. They made jokes, they remained silent, and they made casual remarks that made me feel bad about who I was. And now, when it's aimed at my son, I'm expected to consume the same poison. Oh no. Thank you. When you finally stop making excuses for other people, it's strange how quickly things start to make sense. I knew what I needed to do by the next morning. David was already on board. Over coffee, he said, "We're done, right?" I gave a nod. Yes, we're finished. But the pictures began to come in before I could catch my breath. Facebook, Instagram. My cousin Emily texted me. Why hadn't the lads shown up? They have an entire craft table with a dragon theme. Liam would have gone crazy. He would have Emily. There were images of Max's relatives playing tag in similar clothes and group shots of the kids' table. Naturally, my kid was watching a dragon-themed puppet performance video at home and asked me why we couldn't attend Grandma's birthday. The kicker at the craft table, too. I contributed to the cost. Yes, everyone contributed to the party's funding. Depending on our income, my siblings and I each contributed. We gave more, since David and I make more money than Chris and Chelsea do. In summary, I covered the cost of the event. I covered the cost of the performer. The project was purchased by me, and my kids were purposefully kept out of it. It was no longer merely personal after that. It turned into disdain and scorn, disposability. So I composed a comp email. Courteous Cliff. Hello, Mother. I saw that the gathering was not exclusively for adults. I also saw that every child, with the exception of mine, liked the activities I helped fund. Since the event was misrepresented, I would like our donation to be refunded. Furthermore, David and I are not going to the next family reunion, or stepping aside for the time being. Rachel. Just facts, no rage, no lengthy justification. I will address this later, but the consequences is imminent. As Max attempts to convince me that it spits actual fire, I'm currently simply sitting here watching Liam construct a cardboard dragon out of cereal boxes. And I feel almost at peace for the first time in a long time. People that treat you like you're disposable are the subject of this interesting truth. When you really get rid of them, they usually freak out. I forwarded the email to my mother. Brief, straightforward, nothing noteworthy. I pushed submit, shut down my laptop, and instantly felt like I needed a nap and a drink. In a little quiet toast to choosing violence in a civilized manner, David lifted his coffee. To get rid of the whole Marsh family before 10 in the morning, I gave him a feeble grin. We waited after that. Just 3 hours were needed. Mom didn't give me a call. Obviously not. She added a single comment above the email and shared it to the family group chat. I'm simply devastated. I am unsure of how to react to this. Chelsea began to respond to Helvetica's passive aggression with an avalanche of emotional manipulation. Why you're doing this to Mom is beyond me. She put a lot of effort into that Chris party. Liam suffers with major events, as we all know. Mom could have been attempting to shield him from my Aunt Karen, who wasn't even there at the celebration. I believe Rachel is simply overburdened. New academic year. 2 children. It's quite a bit. Let her have some space. The story of the overburdened mother, I suppose. Much more reassuring than having to confront the reality that I was purposefully left out. I didn't respond. I gave them space to speak. It seems to be the worst thing you can do if you've ever been called tough. Because quiet. Power is that. When you eventually learn to utilize it, they detest it. My mother finally snapped and texted me personally the next day. I apologize if you were offended. I didn't mean to do that. However, requesting reimbursement seems trivial. You made a contribution to a family gathering. The same as everyone else. Hold on. the same as everyone else. My contribution was $600. Chelsea donated $200. Chris contributed $150 and didn't submit his until the week before. Not exactly the same then. I didn't receive the same as everyone else, too. The children of everyone else had a party. The one I had a babysitter. David mumbled when I showed him the text. Instead, an invoice ought to have been sent. I felt inclined to respond in writing. The money isn't the point. It has to do with being misled. You should have had the guts to say it if you wanted my children to be left out. However, it was deliberate to tell me it was adults only before putting on a real puppet performance. All I'm doing is changing how involved I am. She didn't respond. But who did this, do you know? Taking the high road, which allegedly entails drinking a half glass of roses and beginning every phrase with, "I'm just trying to help," made her appear quite proud when she FaceTimed me. Really, Rach, is it possible for us to discuss this without actually doing anything? I didn't make a blink. What a stuff. You mean when I helped pay for a party and my kids weren't invited? She let out a sigh. This is what you usually do. You make everything about Liam and exclusion. It's draining, wearying out. My emotions were back, wearying out. My children, neurodivergent, wearying out. I kept smiling and refusing to stop talking. Wearying out. I didn't shout. I refrained from crying. We're done acting like this is normal, I simply stated. I meant what I said, tell Mom. I hung up after that. For now, I blocked her. Something unexpected occurred that weekend. The group chat for cousins came alive. Only a few of individuals supported me this time. Emily sent me a private message. I was unaware that your invitation was for adults only. It's screwed up. Then Sarah, who has previously had her own conflict with my mom, texted, "You have my admiration. I am aware of their behavior." The news had apparently begun to circulate. My kids were the only ones allowed to attend the adults-only celebration. People were conversing, and the rest of the family was unrestricted. By Monday, my mother attempted something else. He gave David a call. Indeed, she completely ignored me and contacted my husband, who a year before had been on the verge of cutting them off. Only after I pleaded with him not to make things more difficult did he continue attending family gatherings. This time, when he was changing a light fixture in the kitchen, she put him on speaker. He hardly spoke, simply listened as she sobbed about feeling assaulted and losing her daughter. "I know Rachel listens to you," she said. "Would you kindly explain to her how much he is harming everyone?" "No, she understands perfectly," he responded after turning off the light and pausing. "You're simply angry." At last, she stopped allowing it to occur. He hung up after that. I stood there looking at him as if he were a whole different kind of human, and I didn't say anything at first when he told me, because I recognized then that he was the first person to ever unconditionally support me. I was taught that love required emotional gymnastics, perseverance, and tolerance. I learned from David that safety is love. My mother sent one final note on Tuesday. "If you're truly interested in this, I suppose there is nothing I can do to split the family apart. However, I hope you consider the example you're giving your children." And I did. I gave it a lot of thinking. What was I modeling? I was demonstrating to them that power does not lie in quiet. You shouldn't have to shrink in order to be included. If you don't appreciate that love, it's simply manipulation in a fancy typeface. I answered that afternoon. I'm using limits as an example. That my children don't have to change who they are to be accepted, and that love isn't gained by tolerating cruelty. You didn't just leave them out. In a family that ought to have loved them unconditionally, you made them feel like outcasts. It's not a miscommunication. It's a decision. I'm currently creating no signature, no emoticons, just the facts. I wanted to know the kicker, so I blocked her. The family get-together is not going well. 2 months was when he was expected to be. The Airbnb has not been reserved. No spreadsheet has been created. Nobody organized transport, food, or activities. Who did all that in the past? His guests, me. The attention seeker, Rachel. The dramatic Rachel. Rachel, who only seems to be useful when she's working without me in the background. The fractures are visible and the adhesive is gone. Last night, Emily messaged once more. So is it wrong that I'm a little relieved that someone stated it at last? To be honest, I've always felt uneasy with the way people discuss Liam behind your back. Behind my back? Naturally. However, it is no longer the case. I'm not a secret. My son doesn't feel guilty. And you can no longer rent my quiet. You would think that the message would be obvious enough if my whole immediate family was blocked. However, no. People like my mother don't back down when called out, so they doubled down. They get back together. And individuals, such as my sister, they use the group chat to discuss fight tactics. I knew something was wrong when I noticed David standing by the window one Saturday morning with his cup frozen halfway to his mouth. He said, "You won't believe this." I glanced up from Liam's scientific project about cereal spills. I'll believe anything if it has to do with Chelsea clowns or emotional blackmail. He moved out of the way. They were there, the three of them. Chelsea, Chris, and my mother stood on my front porch as if they were shooting a Dr. Phil intervention, the narcissist version. "Don't respond to it," instinctively I said. David, however, is almost halfway out the door because he enjoys commotion like this. "She doesn't want to talk to you," he says, opening it just enough. Like the ghost of every passive-aggressive PTA mother, my mom communicates through the void. "All we want to do is put things right." Correct. It's really wealthy. This is literally going to ruin the reunion because putting things right reportedly involves Chelsea blurting and Chris screaming, "You made Grandma weep." They were concerned about that. Not my children, not excluded. The reunion. I chose not to approach the door. I remained on the ground the entire time. My folks tried to gaslight me from the lawn while Liam and I sat there attaching glitter to cardboard wings. They eventually gave up. David shut the door. "I said," Liam said. "Grandma was shouting, but why she believed she was in command," I said. With a serious nod, he resumed his gluing. Online, the next hit appeared. "You see, this secret forum is used by our extended family. Somehow, a message board from the early 2000s survived. Consider it the nosy, uncomfortable cousin of Facebook. We share plans for reunions, birthdays, pleas for prayers, and the odd passive-aggressive meme there. Chelsea made the first post with the caption, 'Family isn't supposed to hurt,' started with. I contemplated saying something, but keeping quiet breeds animosity. We are all aware of the recent turmoil. Some people have made the decision to distance themselves from their family and get angry about situations that may have been resolved amicably. Handled with elegance. I'll translate. As they handed me the bill and omitted my kids, I was expected to grin. The statement continued by saying, "I attacked Mom on her milestone birthday, demanded money back like it was ransom, and refused to forgive honest mistakes." There was a wide range of comments. I received encouraging pats on the head from several of the elder relatives, some of whom hadn't seen me since 2014. "You only get one family, but they are difficult. It seems like someone needs a sleep and Jesus." I remained silent. Not quite yet. Because you learn to gather receipts before you speak after being accused of overreacting your entire life. I posted one response the next morning. Only one. "Setting the record straight" is the title I gave it. I then included a PDF. A snapshot of my invitation to adults only was attached. Let's maintain our elegance. A party shot with the children's table coated in glitter. Magician and balloon artist. The $600 I transferred via Venmo was marked as Mom's 60th per family divide, a record of the $400 I had already contributed to the previous reunion. 2 years ago, Airbnb paid $300 for Christmas dinner. A censored message from my mom joking that you were always a bit theatrical, and $250 for Grandma's 85th birthday cake. Really, Liam understands. Next, my note. The reunion was not wrecked by me. I simply stopped planning it. It wasn't me that broke up the family. I only brought attention to a fact that everyone was too kind to voice out. Here, not all of us were ever completely accepted. We were tolerated, in part. While some of us were silently moved away, others were observed. I will no longer remain silent about the fact that my son was not excluded by mistake. I then logged off. David peeked, but I didn't check the comments again. It broke the forum, apparently. I received private messages from certain family members thanking me. Others completely stopped answering. Some of the older cousins emailed my mom to offer their support, and one of them inquired as to whether the reunion was still planned or not. We weren't. Nobody offered to host. Nobody could agree on who was provoking stress or who was in the group conversation. Like a Jenga tower constructed on denial, the entire thing collapsed. We thus threw our own celebration. It's simply a birthday, not a reunion. Liam had his 8th birthday. Not everyone received an invitation. Only a handful had supported us. Emily, with her children. Aunt Lucy, who discreetly left the forum and sent Liam a note that read, "You fit in exactly as you are," along with my co-worker Marla and her spouse and a couple of our neighbors. Naturally, he donned his dragon wings. Max was adamant about being a wizard of fire. They featured a cupcake bar, a scavenger hunt, and a handcrafted piñata in the shape of a volcano which Liam happily destroyed after lecturing us on its scientific errors. It was cheerful, serene, and little. "Mom, I really like this party," Liam remarked, turning to face me with icing on his cheek. "It's not the type that wears me out." And since cupcakes are everything I've ever desired, I almost sobbed into them. Not flawless, not glitzy approval. All we needed was a space to breathe. People occasionally ask me if I regret the way things turned out. Not even a bit, actually. The family wasn't destroyed by me. I just quit acting as like it wasn't already broken, and I created something new in the silence that followed. Real, but not larger or louder. Compared to Liam, this is a perfect suit for him. 3 years have passed. Liam is now 11 years old, but I'm still like dragons. He now includes marine predators and dinosaurs. At the dinner table, he once gave a 20-minute TEDx lecture about the Dunkley Estate's hunting habits. They both ended up crying from laughter, even though Max feigned to nod off in the middle. Last year, David and I relocated. New locality, larger yard. There are no emotional landmines hidden beneath family get-togethers, and those who now visit our house. It is they who decide to arrive with love rather than expectations. The reunion never got better. I believe there are still 2 distinct family group conversations. Neither am I. Chelsea once sent a card for Christmas. I didn't open it. What about my mother? She continues to tell others that I cut off contact. She is correct. However, Liam and I were spared by the distance. That's what Christmas is all about. What do you think then? Did I make the correct decision? Was I severe enough or too harsh? Tell me in the comments below. Click subscribe if you would like to hear more tales like this one. Story 4. Hi there, I'm Odilon. According to my family, I failed. Too soft, too quiet, too unseen to ever be significant. At meals, they made jokes behind my back, called me jobless, even removed my name from the business I founded. I allowed them to do so for years. They believed they had them under control and dismissed them both until the day I entered the boardroom. Here's the bit they didn't anticipate, though. If your own father had called you a mistake while paying a paycheck that had your signature at the bottom, how would you have responded? Tell me where you're listening from tonight before we start. What's more, would you have said nothing as I did, or would you have said anything earlier? When I got out of my car and gazed up at the steakhouse's brilliant gold letters, it was almost 7:15. I hesitated a moment longer than I should have. Everything I already knew was shown to me by my reflection in the glass door. This is not what I was dressed for. I had crumpled my jacket on the passenger seat, causing it to wrinkle. My shoes didn't go with it. I entered even though I hadn't had time to clean the lint off my pants. I was shown through the restaurant by the hostess who smiled courteously, a bit too courteously. She continued with a hint of something in her voice. They're already seated. I feel sorry. Curiosity. For a family supper, the table was too long. Chairs with high backs and dark wood. Pearl's father was wearing a golf jacket, and everyone else was their mother. My sister Isolde, wearing her typical soft pink cashmere, is encircled by her circle of admirers, while my elder brother Nathan is looking at his phone. I received a couple short nods and stares. No one got up to welcome me. I took the seat. Just past the swinging door that let out kitchen sounds, it was at the extreme end next to the restrooms. Each time a waiter passed by. Without saying anything, I slid into it. And then I saw the napkins. Everybody had an ancient name stitched in gold thread on a linen napkin that was neatly folded into a triangle. It appeared to have been steam-cooked, Gregory, even my dad, stated. But mine. There was only one paper towel sheet. Not even a paper napkin proper. It was only a cheap square that had been pulled off, folded in half, and placed next to the dish. I gave it too much attention. Nobody spoke. Not even a joke. Nothing but quiet. The crueler aspect was that. I left it there with a smile. The waiter stopped by to collect orders for drinks. I requested lemon-flavored water. Nathan laughed and stated he was still sober. Well done, sis. It hurt more than it ought to have. The topic of careers came up. It did, of course, always. Isolde glowed. My company is completing a purchase. As she raised her wine glass, she spoke. 50 million assets, both international and domestic. Next week, they're putting their faith in me to conduct the client presentation. They all cheered as if they were in church. Dad grinned and remarked, "That's our girl. Some of us leave behind a legacy." Then he came over to me, and a few of us. Try it then. The words weren't the only thing. The delay before trying was the reason, as if he had deliberately avoided gentler wording after considering it. I didn't answer. I tucked the paper towel away carefully after folding it again. Isolde leaned in my direction. At least you have a lot of spare time. Honestly, that must be pleasant. The grind isn't for everyone. More giggling, courteous, managed. Mom even grinned, but she swiftly steered away. In any case, Nathan, how is the deck remodeling in your backyard going? I sipped the water and let the chill to linger on my tongue. They believed I was unemployed. For months, they had held this belief. I quit my last job on my own terms and in silence. I didn't correct what they thought. I gave credence to their whispers. She is adrift. She could be unemployed. She never had Isolde's level of determination. Give them time to reflect. Because the floor they were standing on was what I was constructing. I surveyed the table. Cherry wood. All right. China. A bottle of wine that was more expensive than my first post-college income. They didn't even aware they were dining at one of my establishments, and the air smelt like hubris and truffle butter. After putting the leather billfold next to my father, the server came back with the check. Isolde grabbed it. No, I understand. Dad, don't worry. When Odilon is well again, she will be able to treat us. Everyone chuckled once again. Brief and well-managed, like a laugh track from a comedy. I glanced at the waiter. No need, I answered. It's already covered. Is it older? Blinked. Purchased, I gave a nod. Household account. Dad scowled. Home account. What are you saying? I carefully placed the crumpled paper towel back down after picking it up and holding it between two fingers. I looked them in the eyes one by one. You're sitting in a house. I nodded to the server as I walked by him after gently pressing the napkin down. I didn't wait for their responses to calm down or for another remark. Before anybody had the courage to pose a serious inquiry, I left. The chilly night air felt good on my skin. With my keys in hand, I crossed the street to my car and tightened my coat. Headlights racing by, glasses clinking, and laughter from nearby tables filled the streets of downtown Atlanta. As I got into the driver's seat and shut the door, I let the stillness fall between me and each of them like a curtain. I did not switch on the radio. I made no phone calls. I simply allowed the city to pass by my windows. Still recalling the feel of the embroidered napkin my fingers were resting on the driving wheel. The irony-dipped, silky feel of it on my fingertips. Just beyond the industrial sector, where the gleam of downtown gave way to fading lettering and drab concrete, I was stopped by a red light. It was still standing when I turned my gaze to the left. The storage facility. Not much had changed. The siding's paint flaking was worse than it had been. The bones were the same as they were 15 years before, but the windows had been updated. I had bet everything on those same bones. I stopped. At this hour, the parking lot was deserted. The humming sort of silence. I let my thoughts drift while I sat in the car with the motor running. In the past, that building had been everything. I used what little money I had saved from tutoring and part-time jobs to sign the lease when I was 23. The room was empty, with only a leaky roof and old cement floors. It was mine, though. I used it as a launching pad. Though I knew no one would take me seriously, I had this idea for logistics automation software that could track, optimize, and anticipate delays before they occurred. Not at that age, not with my name. I therefore made up a fictitious consulting business and pitched under that name. Everything was created from the ground up, covered all night. I learned how to manage servers on my own, worked double shifts and sent emails to businesses. One Sunday meal. I told my family about it at the time. It seems like yesterday when I recall this old reaction. She smirked. Fork paused mid-air and said, "What is this like nerd fiction? Sounds like something out of a B-list sci-fi movie." Dad didn't even look up from his glass. "You need to think about a real career, honey. Something steady. HR would be a great fit for you. You're organized." They didn't ask questions, just moved on. I laughed along with them that night, but when I got back to the warehouse, I cried for 20 minutes on the concrete floor, then kept writing code. Months later, I landed my first real contract with a major freight company out of the Carolinas. They didn't care who I was. They appreciated outcomes. The system worked. But when I shared a sanitized version of the data out of naive pride, Isolde took it, dressed it up, rebranded it. She presented it to her company like it was her brainstorm. I didn't find out until Thanksgiving. I stepped into the living room and saw my dad toasting her in front of the family. To his older, he said, for saving the project at her firm. "She's got a mind like a general." No mention of me, no footnote, no wink, just erased. I stood there holding a pie I'd spent 4 hours cooking and felt my cheeks flush. Mom clapped. Nathan high-fived her. I sat in the corner and stayed silent. That was the moment things shifted. Not only that I was invisible, but that they were rewriting the tale and leaving me out. I didn't correct them. I didn't pick out the emails, the images, the code with my digital signature. I filed everything softly permanently. I told myself that if I ever got to tell the tale again, it would be on my terms and with receipts. My gaze returned back to the warehouse in front of me. It was no longer a shell. It now housed a shipping startup, one of several under my holding firm. I didn't use my name on most items. I discovered early on that it was preferable to be underestimated. However, I was the one who signed that lease. I owned the structure they disregarded. Additionally, the systems I had created in that very warehouse were used to process every payment my father and sister received. They didn't know. Every office they worked at had a lease signed by the unemployed female they highlighted. I did not look back as I walked out of the parking lot. Like it didn't matter to anyone but me, the warehouse vanished into the mirror. It was a calm journey home. All I could hear were tires cutting the tarmac, and my mind replaying how Isolde had regarded me when I mentioned house account. In front of a sober audience, she appeared to be a magician whose act had just gone wrong. I was more at ease than I had anticipated. I didn't bother unpacking my purse when I arrived home. I drank a glass of water, kicked off my heels, and waited for the quiet to subside. There was no laughing reverberating through my condo's walls. However, at least they didn't resound with condemnation either. I went to bed after leaving my phone charging on the kitchen counter. I woke up to the sound of buzzing around 6:38 a.m. Ping, ping, ping. Before I touched it, the screen sprang to life. In the family group chat, there are 27 unread messages. I kept my thumb over it. I was aware of what I would discover. Before opening, that stomach tug is familiar. Something you couldn't ignore but didn't ask for. I gave Isolde a tap. Was that a scream for assistance or a flex dad? She has always been dramatic. She was unable to maintain a legitimate work because of this. Don't be hard on me, Mom. She had good intentions. I believe Isolde is experiencing another breakdown. The final word was a smack in the face. Disintegrate. When I stopped going to Sunday brunch after working 80-hour weeks and missed a wedding because I was flying back from Seattle with a signed merger deal in my briefcase, they gave me that moniker years ago. I didn't even blink my eyes. I just saved screenshots by pressing down on the conversation thread. No answer. No defense. Nothing but quiet. It's out of strategy, not weakness. My phone then buzzed once more. Separate conversation. Liam, my nephew, Liam, Antonio. Hello. This morning, I noticed the group chat. It's incorrect, in my opinion. I simply wanted to let you know that I support you. I stopped. It wasn't pain that made my chest clench. Something softer. Relief, perhaps. There was another message. Liam, too. I spotted this and felt you should include a snapshot even though Dad stated you wouldn't see it. A confidential side conversation. Sold it to her spouse. Do not be concerned. When Dad retires, I'll take over as vice president. No. HR, or Odilon, is taken seriously by the board. She is simply the reserved person that attends galas. I read it twice, then carefully again. The silent one. They came to that conclusion. I wasn't the strategist or the founder. Just someone who chose neutral nail polish and posed well in family portraits. I responded to Liam's SMS. You made the correct decision. Thank you. No hearts, no emojis. Just the facts. I then selected Leave Conversation after scrolling to the bottom of the family group chat options. It made no request for an explanation. I didn't either. I sat down at my desk, opened my laptop, and poured myself another glass of water. I didn't even have to consider it. Emery has 2 assistants. Board consolidation is the subject. The senior personnel list for Phase 1 is attached. Every name was read twice by me. Isolde Aldridge, Senior Director of Logistics, Franklin Aldrich. Herman Aldridge, Vice President of External Partnerships, serves as Interim President. There was a commonality among all 3. They continued to believe that the boardrooms they entered belonged to them. Correct? They were unaware that I had provided funding for the last round of bridge finance. They were unaware that I was the holding firm to which they reported. Furthermore, they had no idea that their keycards would stop functioning by next Tuesday. Tuesday was not the day I waited. I was at my work by Sunday evening. Outside my window, the city was calm and dark, similar to the quiet that precedes a required storm. I launched a private browser window, reclined back, and drew my laptop closer. Nobody was able to track it down. The access link to Reynolds Human Capital, a consulting business renowned for its corporate culture, rehabilitation, was typed by my fingertips. Reynolds was what most people were unaware of, bought discreetly years ago through one of my portfolio's lesser-known subsidiaries. Executive division of the subject, review of culture, instant access to Julia Reynolds's body, start a thorough audit of every employee under Franklin and Isolde Aldridge. Within 24 hours, anonymous complaint gathering will start. Every discovery should be sent to the board compliance folder labeled Phase 1. No flags, no signatures. Let the data do the talking. Internal grievances started to pour into the inbox by Monday afternoon. Some had just a few lines. Others resembled journal entries. After being ignored for years, we're fortunate to have a family-run business, he says, but we're not family. We are expendable. In front of the interns, she referred to me as Grandma in Heels. You don't get promoted if you're not related to them. Isolde once made a joke at a Christmas gathering. Unbeknownst to them, some people age out of relevance. There I stood. It was my 50th birthday. I read them all. Not once. 3 times. An ancient scar was scraped by each line. I believed it to be healed. Inside, they established a little kingdom. Something that I made to be flat, equitable, and useful. And that kingship would fall today. Smug brick after smug brick. I was enjoying my second cup of coffee on Tuesday morning when the internal notice sounded. There will be a mandatory compliance review meeting. Time of Isolde Aldridge, 11:30 a.m. Officer Amanda Roth, Senior Consultant, Reynolds HC, assigned to Conference Room 3C. I didn't grin. I didn't have to. As old as heels reverberated down the marble corridor by 11:15. She entered my office with her chin up and her lips tight, and I looked through the opaque glass. After 5 minutes, my dad stormed into my office without knocking. "What is this?" He spoke loudly. Isolde was just caught in an ambush. "Why in the world are you doing this?" Dylan slowly. I put down my coffee. The rim's steam was still rising. The board took the initiative. "You are aware that transparency is a hot topic right now." He gave me a scowl as if I had smacked him. "Do you find this amusing? Do you honestly believe that the best way to prove yourself is to scrutinize your own sister?" Calmly, I folded my hands on the desk. "Although I believe it's past due, you are welcome to submit a formal protest. The procedure currently operates in this manner, not tantrums in the hallway." He appeared to want to toss something, but nothing within his grasp would save him from seeming foolish. The shaking in the frame stuck with me even though he didn't smash the door when he rushed away. My legal aide, Emery, who was one of the few individuals in the organization who truly understood who I was behind the scenes, received a last command from me that afternoon. The folder should be left on the VPI conference table. No justification. Put a label on it. Preliminary results. Ethical issues. Verify that it's the red-tabbed variety. Just presence, no autographs, no opinion. Before the folder was even opened that evening, the rumors began to circulate. And I was aware of the purpose. If they believed this to be private, hold off until the board discovers what they have been concealing. The night before the anniversary event, I didn't get much sleep. I was already dressed when the daylight began to peek through my condo's wooden flooring. Dark pants and a navy silk blouse. Hair in a tidy bun. Not a sound. Nothing that demanded notice. Just subtle presence and crisp lines. The same manner that I constructed everything. They wouldn't look. It seemed like a long elevator journey up to the rooftop garden. As usual, above the faint notes of light jazz music, I could hear conversation. No one turned, but my heels clicked on the tiled walkway to the reception. Not a single head turned to look at me. Perhaps it was simpler that way. White seats were arranged in rows facing a stage with gold and navy curtain screens on either side that looped a slideshow highlighting the company's history. I crossed my legs and gently let my eyes to roam the screen after finding an empty seat at the rear that was neither too distant nor too close. There were my designs. I created the UI when I was 23. When I still thought they would be proud, I covered the mock-up in that dusty warehouse. However, beneath the pictures is strong white lettering that highlights Franklin and Isolde Aldridge's strategic objective, not even blinking. The montage came to an end. The CEO stepped onto the platform. A few board members came next. Cheers. Appropriate giggles at outdated office pictures. My father then came forward for the microphone exchange. His face hadn't changed much, but his voice had become even more assured, as if decades of praise had shaped it more deeply. "I want to express my gratitude to everyone who has contributed to this legacy," he remarked. "A family doesn't get to create anything enduring very often." For emphasis, he paused and grinned down at the staff rows. "Isolde, my daughter, deserves special recognition for her leadership vision and strategic acumen throughout the company's formative years." Again, polite applause. Isolde grinned as modestly as she could. Then he looked at my younger daughter Odilon, then toward the rear where I was sitting. I'm aware that you're still figuring things out. Continue. He laughed softly as if it were a supportive giggle. A quiet sound was emitted by someone close to me. Another person chuckled. Not in a nasty way, like if they felt sorry for me. I got up. I didn't stutter or hurry. I continued down the side aisle until the atmosphere changed, until I was far behind the applauding and the music. I finally let out a breath after pushing open the hefty double doors and entering the lower patio. Continue. Not too far from the party, but close enough to be alone, I sat in my suit on the sidewalk. The echoes of their joy were too loud for me to hear. That sentence, it wasn't only a rejection, it summed up all of my contacts with them over the previous 20 years. Are you still looking for a place? As though I had been exploring rather than constructing. I gazed at the fountain in the courtyard's middle. As the early twilight dimmed, the water trickled softly over the string lights. I considered packing a suitcase, heading home, and vanishing. I could. I had the money, the obscurity, and the silence. However, a young intern named Kayla was interrupted by a voice close to the stone archway where two corridors converged. I recalled that a middle-aged executive was reprimanding her. You don't just knock on a VPI door in the middle of a logistics discussion, he said. A chain of command exists. You are no longer a college student. She nodded, despite her cheeks crumpling. Last month, it was her who inquired about vendor integrations. Luminous eyes, quick learner. With an armor-like embrace around a file folder, she turned and left. I saw her leave. I recognized the stroll I used to take when I had ideas and no one was interested. I remember being made fun of for asking pointless questions in rooms I wasn't supposed to be in, back when I believed they may be correct. I tightened my hands as I glanced at the lights once again. I would allow them to steal my name, my space, and my credit. I would allow them to enclose me and pretend that I was still learning. However, it is no longer the case. Not after tonight. Slowly, I dusted the dust from my trousers, got up, and walked back toward the corridor that went inside. Perhaps it was time for them to hear my voice if they were brave enough to remain silent. Perhaps it was time for them to hear my voice if they were brave enough to remain silent. Monday morning came with a false sense of peace. The city was buzzing with its typical unconsciousness, and the sky over Midtown were a faint stretch of gray. I parked at the executive garage's 4th floor. As usual. Same key fob, same space. However, I wasn't simply turning up today. I adjusted my blazer, tapped the Bluetooth in my ear, and got out of the car. I walked silently toward the service elevator and murmured, "Start phase 2." Without hesitation, my assistant said, "Yes, Miss Aldridge." The system initiated what we referred to as a quiet lockdown as the elevator doors shut behind me. Only back-end selective access changes, no system-wide notices or warning banners. The cleanliness was surgical. The IT security team had already started putting the policy into practice when I arrived at my workplace. I saw the courtyard down below where staff were just beginning to arrive from my window. They were all unaware that by lunchtime some doors will be closed to some individuals. I went to the admin area and logged in. Zelda Aldridge and Franklin Aldridge are at the top of the list, having both had their executive security override removed. I didn't grin. Retaliation wasn't the point here. Control was at issue here, getting back something I shouldn't have lost in the first place. A notice showed up on my screen at 9:02 a.m. No access. An attempt to connect into the Aldridge Air server was rejected. Then another access was refused. The request to enter the F. Aldridge Financial Archives was denied. I turned to face my helper, who was holding a tablet at the edge of the doorway. Ensure that their responses are recorded. After giving one nod, she walked out of the room. A ripple had already begun to form by late morning. Demanding to know why her credentials weren't functioning, Isolde had barged into HR. I was not required to be present. I had surveillance footage logs and a timestamp. I let the statistics do the talking. However, revenge arrived by lunchtime. A flagged message from Internal Affairs buzzed across my phone. A potential attempt at character defamation is urgent. An anonymous, unsigned PDF that said I had falsified performance reports due to emotional instability is attached. It was tinged with worry, the type that conceals its claws with phrases like unfit and erratic. I learned everything from the file information. It had been made the previous evening on a machine that belonged to his former helper. Before she used that laptop to create her quarterly reports, I had seen its IP address. Careless. I stood up and closed the file. There was no need for a meeting. All I needed was a hallway. At first, she didn't notice me coming. With her face taut with fake serenity and her chin high, she clicked her heels quickly along the hallway. She stopped for just a moment when she saw me. I even remarked, "If you're going to leak fake documents. Better encryption, at least." She narrowed her eyes after blinking. "You're simply resentful. You weren't picked by Dad." "Did he pick you?" I inquired. "When I was constructing everything you stood on, did you simply talk louder?" Isolde's head cocked. "Odie, he never thought of you as a leader. He didn't even consider you a rival." I moved in closer. "He never saw," I said, for a period. I didn't wait to hear her counter-argument. Before the pain of what I had spoken had really subsided, I turned to go. I went back to my office and composed a last message to legal. To the Ethics Committee and HR findings of subject wrongdoing. A complete board review is necessary. Isolde wasn't imitated by me. I didn't take after my dad. I just hit the transmit button. After that, I wrote a note in my planner. 10 a.m. on Thursday. Conference room 9B full board. The gathering wouldn't be visible to them. Send out invitations before it's too late. The boardroom door had already latched behind them before they learned the meeting was mandatory. The door clicked behind them as soon as they had entered the meeting room. There was no loud noise, only a neat mechanical lock that made it obvious it wouldn't be opening again very soon. The board was to my left. Legal counsel was opposite from me, and I was already seated at the head of the long walnut table. Nobody spoke. The quiet was effective. My dad scowled. "What is this?" Isolde looked around the room, and her heels halted, eyes flitting between the faces. One more check for conformity. Faking a half grin as if it may yet win someone over, she questioned. Calmly, I gestured to the frosted glass behind them. "For secrecy, the doors are shut. You should sit down." After hesitating, they sat down. Very much, like warnings, the chairs scraped. I leaned a little forward. Even a voice. "Let's get started." I handed the board secretary a pile of documents. The members grabbed for theirs, opening the covers one by one. Shell company diagrams, transfer memoranda, and incorporation documents. Then came the actual surprise. My name, majority stakeholder. The place fell silent, like a chill breeze. My dad's mouth tightened. "This is absurd." "Is it?" I tilted my head in question. "Because the Delaware office of the Secretary of State appears to disagree. Your signature does too." "That's right," I gestured, transferring Class B shares to a company that I just so happened to own. His hands trembled only a little as he turned the pages more quickly. Isolde was still standing. She ran her fingertips over the edge of the folder as if it were about to bite. He said again, more to himself than to anybody else, "This is a trick." "No," I answered in a firm voice. "This is the past. I just wasn't in yours." The air was heavy. You could still hear paper being shuffled and breathing. Nothing else until I pushed a tiny black remote control that I had retrieved from my blazer's side pocket. I said, "Let's analyze culture." Voices came first, followed by the crackling of a ceiling speaker. "Isolde, clearly. Half of the teams are coasting. You don't have a voice if you're not family. Next." Laughter. The women left the room as her father spoke. "On the back and forth, you save time." One of the board members tensed. Another blinked quickly as he glanced down at the table. I gave it 10 more seconds to play. I then selected Pause. 3 months ago, those were taken. Complete with your quarterly off-site refreshments. Someone cleared their throat. I think the board has given too much praise to the wrong individuals. Let's examine more closely at what you've been clapping for, I replied. Another shuffle. At the far end, the legal advisor took out a memo from his own folder. According to him, these and other remarks gathered throughout our research seem to be in violation of the company's ethical code. Clause 14 requires a required contract review, where the violations are combined with share manipulation and the concealment of legitimate credit. He made a sale. He was pallid now. My father stopped talking and leaned back. The loudest sound in the room could have been that. The chairman's hands were folded. Slowly, he murmured, "Mr. Aldridge, Miss Aldridge, we need your resignations by today's end of business." My father sold, after opening his lips and closing it again. His voice broke. "This is not possible." I fixed my blazer and stood up. "Did you wish to remove me?" I looked at each of them and replied, "To preserve your sense of power. The exact thing you attempted to keep me out of will now be removed from your memory." After that, I turned, went to the door, and gave a nod. The lock behind me snapped open as soon as I reached the assistant who was waiting outside. I revised the conclusion since they had excluded me from the company's history. My clothing were still stuck to the boardroom air. I didn't sit down or let out a breath until I returned to my workplace. As if it owed me something, I went directly to the window, drew aside the blinds, and gazed out at the metropolitan skyline. "Only this release," I said, turning around and tapping my assistant's phone. The assertion. The press release was all over the place 20 minutes later. The headlines are thunderous. Following an internal ethics shakeup, the company will undergo significant transformation. The new administration says nepotism and bigotry are not tolerated. For the first time, my name appeared on it without any concealment. Aldridge, Ottoline. Hundreds and hundreds of texts and emails flooded in. Current supervisors, retired staff members, former interns, and particularly women contacted out. Some people expressed gratitude in entire paragraphs. Others just sent a simple "thank you" message. It was long overdue, humiliating, and overpowering. I came about it when perusing the online mentions. An old co-worker from the early days that I hardly remembered shared a side-by-side picture. One picture was outdated, faded. Wearing jeans and t-shirts, our original founding team was standing in the warehouse, all of us smiling. Near the rear, I was partially hidden by a folding table. The cropped image from the same day is the other picture. However, I'm in the middle of the foreground this time. She constructed it according to the caption. They simply stood before it. It struck more forcefully than I had anticipated. Within hours, the post went viral. Desperation accompanied that virality. That night, while sitting side by side on a beige sofa and attempting to appear unguarded, Isolde and my father went live on social media. She had flawless makeup. He spoke in a theatrical tone. With an almost tremulous voice, Isolde said, "She's been planning this for years." Justice was not at issue here. This was retaliation. My father, who was always understanding, followed up with Odell. She found it difficult to accept criticism. Although we adore her, she has been manipulating this story to harm the business. Together, we constructed. I didn't recoil. Others posted a retort, but I didn't. Anonymous leaks of screenshots from internal correspondence surfaced. Whistleblowers emerged from the shadows. Stories of arbitrary demotions, rude remarks, and exclusion from important meetings were recounted by former employees. Trends became apparent. Within 1 hour, their videos' comments turned against them. One lady stated I was fired after telling HR that Isolde made fun of my stammer. She must have been deliberate about that as well. Another person wrote that her father advised her not to dress too ambitiously. This is instantaneous karma. Silently, I watched it all happen. I then made a little video. I took a seat at my desk. No makeup, no lighting team. The lens and I alone. I responded, I believe in truth, but I don't believe in takedowns. Silence is a weak foundation for success. I kept quiet long enough. I left off the hashtags. No editing, no music. It was not just a trending clip. It struck a chord. After declining earlier that week, our company's stock steadied before rising. Integrity was valued by investors more than denial. And in the middle of everything, unexpectedly something occurred. My home address received a delivery. A vintage cardboard box that had been meticulously packed and labeled in my mother's handwriting I hadn't seen in more than 10 years. A sealed package, a charm bracelet, and a few family photographs are inside. I could still read the little faded and occasionally blurred note within. Do not allow them to minimize you in order to suit their universe. You were destined to construct your own. I held that paper in both hands while I sat there for a long time. Her voice reverberated across the ages. I put the message next to a freshly framed picture on my office bookcase later that evening. The warehouse one. The version without cropping. But I was in the spotlight this time. I did more than simply modify the conclusion. This rendition was above their wildest expectations. It had been 3 months. The workplace was quieter now, yet it seemed more lively in some way. Free-flowing conversations took place. Hurried whispers in elevators are over. No more looking over people's shoulders. Just the cadence of individuals working fearlessly and efficiently. There were no double takes as I moved around the main level as I had hundreds of times before. Nobody is attempting to position me. No erroneous presumptions. They were now aware that the cloak was gone. No background pseudonym or borrowed title. I didn't hide behind the majority stakeholder or the project creator. I just strolled, and both they and I saw each other. A man in accounting smiled and nodded as he went by me. A facilities management woman waved a clipboard in the shape of a trophy. Even the intern I once helped get through her first briefing on logistics. She raised her head. Later that week, I sat in one of the breakout rooms with the intern. She hesitated, tinkering with the corner of her notepad and tapping her pen. I considered leaving, she eventually acknowledged. I didn't believe that people like us belonged here after everything that had transpired. I saw her not as a supervisor or even a mentor, but as someone who understood what it was like to doubt your own position in a space that had been constructed by others. I understand how you feel. But don't let them teach you to disappear, I added quietly. She didn't weep, but she blinked rapidly, simply grinned and nodded. It was the type of modest success that I used to believe was inconsequential. As it happens, they are the most important, as the days went by. As my father and I grew older, the ambient sounds turned to static. Neither had gone back to work. The consulting legacy of my father vanished into obscurity. Isolde attempted to open her own shop, but within weeks her reputation preceded her, and prospective customers began to leave. I'm sure they still held me responsible, but now they did so from a distance in dimly lit rooms that weren't theirs. One evening at home, with my mother's words still carefully folded next to my desk, I went back to that letter. I did more than simply read it this time. I put it in a frame. I placed it next to a brand new plaque that said CEO Adelon Maris directly above my computer display. Initials in email footers are no longer acceptable. No more editing speeches by others. There will be no more chairs at table corners. I contributed to creating my voice, my position, and my name. Those mornings were peaceful and calm. Now I would get to my workplace early, get a cup of fresh coffee, and walk into the foyer where it all began. I had waited for an interview in the same lobby years prior, clutching a CV and wearing borrowed heels. While a receptionist looked straight through me, no one would ask for it. There was now a quote, not a catchphrase or mission statement, etched into the glass behind the same registration desk. Just the plain facts. Not everyone raises their voice. We construct spaces so that everyone else can at last. When visitors read, that they stopped. While the new recruits took pictures, I would walk by. Just being there with no announcements or cheers, that was sufficient. I revised the conclusion since they had excluded me from the company's history. In addition, my family attempted to shrink me in order to fit me into their frame, but I wasn't made to fit. I was made to